Yo, Atlas speaking, and welcome to part 2 of What If I Was Reborn in the Naruto world as Obito Uchiha with the Universal Gamer System. Let the tale begin. Chapter 21, A Scene of Crisis. Obito set down his chopsticks, his chest tightening with a twinge of bitterness. The girl he adored right in front of him was openly concerned about another guy. Are you kidding me? This is breaking me. Ryoko tilted her head slightly, her expression indifferent. I don't know. Shikayu leaned back, resting his arms lazily behind his head as he glanced at Obito. If you're so curious about Kakashi, why not just ask him? He's sitting right there, Shikayu said, motioning toward Obito. After all, he's the one in our class who's closest to Kakashi. At Shikayu's comment, Rin turned to Obito with wide eyes, a flicker of hope lighting up her face. Obito, do you know how Kakashi's doing right now? Obito hesitated, grumbling under his breath before reluctantly answering. That guy's either on a mission or training non-stop. He's got no free time. I did hear him mention he wants to participate in this year's Chunin exams. He's probably preparing for that now. Ayako's jaw dropped in shock. The Chunin exams. If Kakashi passes, he'll set a new record in Konoha, won't he? Shikayu nodded. Yeah, he'd become the youngest Chunin in Konoha's history. Rin's eyes sparkled like stars. Kakashi is amazing. Obito frowned, his annoyance barely contained. He hasn't even passed yet, and you're all acting like it's a done deal. Though deep down, he knew Kakashi would pass. But still, you've never even seen his face. I'm going to create a world without Kakashi, Obito muttered irritably, jabbing at his barbecue with his chopsticks, no longer participating in the conversation. The three of them soon shifted their discussion back to themselves, talking about their plans after graduation. Ryoko spoke up first. Well, after graduating, I'll probably become a sensory-type ninja. Shikayu propped his chin on his hand, his tone unenthusiastic. Honestly, I don't really want to be a ninja. It's too troublesome. But it's not like I have much say in the matter. Rin laughed softly, her eyes curving into cheerful crescents. Shikayu, with your intelligence, it'd be such a waste not to become a ninja. As for me, I want to be a medical ninja. Saving lives has always been my dream. What about you, Obito? Rin asked, turning toward him with a curious smile. The others followed her gaze, waiting for his answer. Obito scratched the back of his head shyly. I want to become Hokage. The silence was deafening. Shikayu, Ryoko, and Rin exchanged looks, their expressions saying, just, stop talking, Obito. After dinner, the four parted ways. Shikayu and Ryoko headed home in different directions, while Obito walked Rin back to her house, holding her hand as they strolled side by side. The cool night breeze carried a gentle chill, and moonlight spilled through the trees, casting a silvery glow over everything. Rin's presence made everything seem serene and perfect. Obito wished this walk could last forever. But unfortunately, it took only 10 minutes to reach her doorstep. Reluctantly, he let go of her hand. See you at Academy, Rin. Rin tilted her head, hands clasped behind her back as she smiled sweetly. Obito, make sure to stay safe on your way home. Obito grinned foolishly, nodding as he turned to leave. Humming to himself, he walked down the road. Today was a great day. But suddenly, an indescribable sadness swept over him. His chest throbbed with an excruciating pain, so intense it brought him to his knees. What is this? Obito gasped, clutching his chest in confusion. A radiant light appeared before him, spreading outward and enveloping him completely. When his vision cleared, Obito found himself in an unfamiliar world. Where, am 17, why am I here? He stood cautiously, scanning his surroundings. He appeared to be in a desolate alleyway. The buildings were low and dilapidated, their walls painted a stark, lifeless white, nothing like the architecture in Konoha. Was this place abandoned? It feels dead. Rain drizzled from the overcast sky, the drops forming ripples in the puddles below. Raising his hand, Obito realized the raindrops passed right through him. He also noticed he cast no reflection in the water. "I'm not really here," he murmured, realization dawning. But before he could make sense of it, a familiar figure stepped into view. Tsukumo Hatake. Tsukumo looked terrible. His clothes were drenched in blood, his body riddled with wounds, and a gaping hole marred his side. Obito's eyes widened in shock. "What happened to you?" Tsukumo turned toward Obito, his gaze sharp and feral, like a beast ready to strike. The killing intent radiating from Tsukumo was suffocating, crashing over Obito in waves. Obito struggled to breathe under the pressure, his voice trembling as he said, "It's me, Tsukumo-sensei. I'm Obito." But Tsukumo's cold gaze didn't waver, and he raised his blade, pointing it directly at Obito. "You picked this moment, of all times, to show up?" Tsukumo's voice was low and dangerous. "It's hard not to think this was planned." "Planned? By who?" Obito turned, and his heart sank. Behind him, a dozen figures had appeared, surrounding Tsukumo in a tightening circle. The leader stepped forward, a cold smile on his face. "Tsukumo-sama, don't misunderstand. We're here under orders from Danzo-sama, to assist you." Tsukumo snorted. "Assist me? Is that what you call it?" The man nodded. "Of course. We're here to help you." His smile twisted cruelly. "Help you die." Chapter 22, The Fall of the White Fang. With a weary wave of his hand, he beckoned toward the shadows. "Since it's come to this, all of you come out. Let's give Tsukumo a grand send-off." Dark, cloaked figures emerged silently from the shadows, their movements devoid of sound. Each bore menacing masks and gleaming blades, resembling harbingers of death come to claim a soul. Tsukumo let out a quiet sigh. He knew there was no escape today. After surviving countless life-or-death missions, he had never thought the end would come at the hands of his own comrades. A wry chuckle escaped his lips. Gripping the White Fang blade tightly, he stepped forward to meet the black-clad shinobi head. On. Not a word was spoken. The only sounds were the crisp clashes of metal, oddly melodic in the still air. The battle was like a silent theater. Blades flashed, bodies moved with deadly precision, a perfect harmony of power and speed. One after another, the masked attackers fell, their lifeless bodies littering the ground, a grim decoration for the stage of combat. But no matter how skilled, even the strongest warrior has limits. The tempo of clashing steel quickened, building toward an inevitable crescendo. Then, with a final metallic cry, a broken blade flew through the air, embedding itself in the ground. The lone figure at the center faltered, collapsing to his knees, unable to rise again. The curtain fell. From the gathered figures, one man stepped forward. He gave a slight bow, as if to mark the end of the performance. "Tsukumo," he said calmly, "you will be remembered as a hero of Konohagakure. Rest in peace." Lying on the ground, Tsukumo gazed upward, his voice steady despite the blood spilling from his lips. Why? He had dedicated his entire life to the village. Why was this his reward? The leader sighed heavily. "Because you stood in Danzo-sama's way. You stood in Root's way, and in Konoha's way. For the greater good, some sacrifices are necessary." Tsukumo chuckled bitterly, his laughter marred by a fresh cough of blood. "You are not Konoha. With all due respect, Tsukumo, you're mistaken." The leader raised his right arm in a solemn gesture, placing it diagonally across his chest. The shinobi behind him mirrored the motion in perfect unison. Their voices rang out as one, emotionless and resolute. Without names, without feelings. Without pasts, without futures. We are the roots buried deep beneath the soil, supporting the great tree of Konoha. Konoha thrives because of us. Tsukumo closed his eyes for the final time, cutting short any further words. A pack of brainwashed pawns. Why waste my breath? In his last moments, he thought of his son. If I die, Kakashi will be devastated. But Obito should be there to keep him company. A fleeting smirk crossed his bloodied lips. Damn you, Danzo. When you get here, I'll cut you down myself. The leader straightened his robes and waved to his subordinates. The target is dead. Mission complete. Clean the site. Quickly, we need to report back to Danzo. Sama. Shadows moved with mechanical precision, reshaping the scene to suit their narrative. Nearby, Obito's face contorted with rage as he hurtled toward the group. Bastards. I'll kill you all. But before he could reach them, the scene froze, like someone had pressed pause on reality. Then everything shattered. The world dissolved into fragments of light and vanished. When Obito regained awareness, he was back where he started. His fingernails dug deep into his palms, leaving bloody crescents. Damn it. Damn it! He fell to his knees, slamming his fists into the ground over and over. The warm, gentle uncle who had taught him swordsmanship, shared meals with him, and never once acted superior gone. Even after Obito had pulled Tsukumo back from despair, even after changing what should have been a tragic fate, they had taken him away. You heartless monsters! How dare you! Rage, despair, hatred, and a burning thirst for vengeance churned inside Obito, threatening to consume him. Crack! Somewhere deep within his mind, he heard the sound of something breaking. It was as though a shackle had been shattered, unleashing a strange surge of power that coursed through him. His vision turned crimson. Within the blood-red haze, a single black tomo appeared. Slowly, a second began to take shape. But Obito's young body couldn't handle the strain. The forming tomo faded, retreating back into his mind to await another awakening. So, this is the Sharingan, Obito whispered, his voice hollow. There was no joy, only sorrow. This was his first true experience of loss in this world. Ding! The system's emotionless voice broke through the silence. The prelude video has concluded. Please make your choice. Important notice, this choice will significantly impact the main storyline. Until the choice is completed, no additional system tasks will be issued. Proceed carefully. 3 bright red exclamation marks emphasize the warning. Obito frowned. No new tasks until I finish this choice? This was a first. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, he focused on the options presented. Option 1, avenge the White Fang. Decapitate Danzo. Reward, White Fang swordsmanship. Option 2, avenge the White Fang. Expose Danzo's treachery to the public. Reward, titanium grave marker 1. Option 3, forget the White Fang, sever your ties. Reward, Byakugan 2. Option 4, join Root. Become a double agent. Reward, curse seal of tongue eradication 1. Option 3, endure in silence. Wait for the right moment. Reward, unknown. Obito's frown deepened as he weighed his options. Tsukumo had been like family to him. There was no way he could let this grudge go. But with his current strength, going after Danzo was suicide. His best chance was to rely on the system to grow stronger, yet the system seemed to be pushing him toward patience. Grinding his teeth, he finally made his choice. Danzo, you'd better enjoy your time. 10 years, at most 10 years, and I'll take your head myself. He slammed his will onto option and endure in silence. When Obito returned home that night, he brushed the dirt from his clothes before stepping inside. Hearing the door, his grandmother rushed out, worry etched on her face. Obito, why are you so late? Did something happen? Obito forced a smile, trying to reassure her. But the more he smiled, the more tears welled up in his eyes. Grandma, I'm so sad. His grandmother pulled him into a hug, patting his back gently. My poor boy. What happened? Tell me who hurt you. Grandma will take care of them. Obito let out a choked laugh. Grandma, you can't fight the person who hurt me. She puffed up indignantly. Then I'll call someone. If I can't beat them, I'll get Kawa to deal with them. Even the Hokage can't bully my grandson. Obito clung to her tightly, burying his face in her shoulder. Grandma, you're the best. She stroked his hair, her voice soft and soothing. Hush now, my dear. Everything will be all right. In her embrace, Obito let himself grieve, the weight of his loss finally pouring out. Chapter 23, Comforting Kakashi. The news of White Fang's death spread through the village like wildfire, amplified by those who took it upon themselves to share the tragedy. Did you hear? White Fang sacrificed himself to recover the village's lost interests. He completed a dangerous mission but was gravely injured and didn't survive. *C, I told you before, didn't I? White Fang wasn't the selfish type. None of you believed me back then, but now you're all convinced, huh? Convinced? Give me a break. You were the loudest one cursing him back then. I was the only one defending him. That's a load of crap. You're the one who camped outside his house and screamed insults for days. Now you've got the nerve to call me out? The heated argument escalated quickly, with the two men lunging at each other. A woman accompanying them tried to mediate. Stop it, you two, please stop fighting. A passerby nodded in agreement. Yeah, cut it out. Fighting won't solve anything. The two men paused mid-swing, glaring at the onlooker. The passerby adjusted the forehead protector on his head and said coolly, What are you staring at? You want to fight me next? The first man's expression shifted. Ah, no, sir. I was just admiring such a noble face. Truly unforgettable. The second man chimed in with a forced grin, absolutely, couldn't agree more. The ninja waved them off, uninterested in engaging further. Scram! Right away! The two men and the woman hurried off, eager to escape the situation. The ninja spat on the ground, muttering, fickle, shallow villagers. Disgusting. His companion chuckled softly. Don't take them too seriously. They're just pawns swept up in the tides of gossip. Let's focus on something more important, like how to support our young teammate. He hasn't seen himself lately. The first ninja grumbled, You think I haven't tried? That kid shuts me out completely. I swear, if he keeps ignoring me, I'll change my name to his. His companion laughed awkwardly. Come on, no need to make rash promises just because you admire White Fang-sama. Let's get going. The setting sun painted the sky a fiery red, casting a melancholic glow over the world. Golden leaves danced in the wind, adding to the somber atmosphere. By the lake, a small figure stood silently. Kakashi stared at the blood-red sunset, listening to the mournful lapping of water against the shore. His heart churned with an unbearable mix of emotions. This place. His father used to bring him here whenever he had the time, sharing life lessons between moments of calm. Now, the scenery remained, but his father was gone forever. Kakashi clenched his fists, frustration burning in his chest with no outlet for release. Kakashi. Obito's voice broke the silence. He stood a short distance away, his expression conflicted. For days, he'd been looking for Kakashi, only to be avoided at every turn. Today, he'd scoured half the village before finally finding him. Obito approached quickly, placing a hand on Kakashi's shoulder. You've been avoiding me, haven't you? Kakashi turned to him, his face devoid of emotion. He didn't respond. Obito sighed deeply, his heart aching at the sight. Kakashi, I know you're in pain, but... Before he could finish, Kakashi shoved his hand away, his voice sharp and raw. Don't act like you understand my pain. You don't know anything. Obito's eyes darkened, a crimson glow overtaking them. Believe me, Kakashi, I understand. Kakashi's eyes widened in surprise. You awakened the Sharingan, when? Obito met his gaze firmly. The moment I heard about Uncle Sakumo's death. Kakashi's gaze dropped as silence fell between them. He hadn't expected Obito's Sharingan to awaken because of his father's passing. Obito gently pulled Kakashi into an embrace. I understand how you feel, truly. But you're not alone, Kakashi. You still have me. He hesitated before adding, please, pull yourself together. Uncle Sakumo wouldn't want to see you like this. Kakashi's resolve wavered. After a moment of silence, he murmured, will you spar with me? Obito nodded without hesitation. Of course. By the lake, the two boys began exchanging blows. Neither held back, each strike landing with raw force. They didn't dodge, letting the pain wash over them before returning it in kind. It wasn't long before they resembled a pair of battered pandas, bruised and exhausted. Eventually, Kakashi let out a scream of frustration, and Obito joined in, their voices echoing across the water. When they finally collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air, they looked at each other's swollen faces and burst into laughter. Thanks, Obito, Kakashi said sincerely. Obito waved it off, throwing an arm around him. Don't mention it. We're brothers, right? That's what brothers are for. Kakashi hesitated. Right. That evening, Obito returned home, sporting a fresh collection of bruises. He felt like a walking medicine capsule. His grandmother's voice trembled with worry when she saw him. Obito! What happened to you? Did you get into a fight at Academy? Obito grinned cheekily. Nah, Grandma. Just some taijutsu practice gone wrong. His grandmother sighed in relief. Goodness, you scared me. I knew your academy wouldn't allow such things. Obito chuckled inwardly. Grandma, if only you knew. She fetched some ointment and began treating his injuries, scolding him as she worked. You really should be more careful, Obito. You're going to give me a heart attack one of these days. Obito nuzzled her affectionately. Don't worry, Grandma. You've got me, right? Who else am I going to make worry about me? She poked his forehead lightly. You little rascal. No extra treats for you tonight. Obito yelped, immediately switching to a pleading tone. Ah, Grandma, I'm sorry. Don't be mad, okay? She feigned annoyance. And why should I forgive you? Obito scratched his head. Because I'm adorable? Asterisk, fine. I'll heat up dinner. There's braised pork tonight. Obito hugged her tightly. Grandma, you're the best. As he ate, Obito reflected quietly. The world isn't entirely bleak. There are still precious things worth protecting, Grandma, Kakashi, Rin. So watch out, you schemers in the shadows. Obito Uchiha will not let you drag this world into darkness. Chapter 24, Graduation Becoming a Genin. A day-to-day life filled with memories and experiences dash. Stories from the past reminiscing while moving forward dash. Without the system's outrageous options, life had become mundane. Obito spent his days goofing around with Guy in the woods, occasionally chatting with Kakashi, and while teasing little girls. Yep, that's right. Why study when you can play? Time passed in the blink of an eye, and before he knew it, Obito was approaching graduation. Over the past year, his progress in taijutsu and ninjutsu had been modest. Instead, he had devoted himself to jinjutsu. After all, with his family's signature red-eye illness, wouldn't it be a waste not to? Under the guidance of his uncle Kawa, Obito had mastered most of the Uchiha clan's jinjutsu techniques. He had learned demonic illusion, false surroundings technique, demonic illusion, hell viewing technique, demonic illusion, mirror heaven and earth change, and jinjutsu, unknown fire. By now, his overall strength was on par with some Chunin. I just wish this damned mission would complete already, Obito muttered under his breath. Obito! Rin is here to get you, his grandmother called from outside. Coming! Obito sprang up like a carp flipping out of the water. He quickly dressed and dashed outside, scratching his head. Rin, what brings you here today? Rin was wearing a light purple dress and little red-brown boots. Her pale, slender legs gleamed in the sunlight, making Obito gulp. No, no! Obito is not a perv. He's just hungry. That's why he swallowed hard. With her hands clasped behind her back, Rin tilted her head and smiled. Today is graduation day, silly. I was worried you'd be late, so I came to get you. Obito, trying to sound confident, said, Rin, you overthink things. How could I possibly be late for such an important day? Rin responded with a skeptical hum, but she didn't push further. Hurry up and eat something. We should get going. Obito quickly shoveled some food into his mouth. Ph. All set, let's go. Rin nodded, turning to Obito's grandmother. We're heading out now, Grandma. Goodbye, Grandma. Take care, you too. Walk slowly. Got it, Grandma. Obito shouted without looking back. The pink petals of cherry blossoms fluttered in the breeze, their gentle dance painting a scene both romantic and serene. Walking beside Rin, Obito couldn't help but steal a glance. A stray lock of her hair swayed in the wind, framing her face as sunlight kissed her soft smile. Obito imprinted this moment deep into his memory. Even years later, he would recall it vividly, this perfect spring day with Rin. When they arrived at the academy, the auditorium was already filled with students. The third Hokage sat on the stage, his kind smile growing brighter as he gazed at the young faces before him. These children were the future of Konohagakure. Once everyone was seated, Inisuk, a teacher standing beside the Hokage, cleared his throat and began reading from a prepared script. Esteemed Hokage-sama, dear students, good morning. Today marks one of the most important days of your lives, your graduation ceremony. Congratulations, everyone, on this incredible milestone. Obito, as if on cue, clapped enthusiastically, louder than anyone else. Bravo, Inisuk-sensei. Well said. Inisuk gave Obito an amused nod before continuing. Rin Noura, Nagano, Shikawa Nara, Kurino Yuhi, Shizun, Ayako Aburame, Obito Uchiha, and Asuma Sarutobi. Through unwavering effort and determination, you have all successfully completed your studies. I now announce that all listed students have met the graduation standards of Konohagakure Ninja Academy. Congratulations! Obito was the first to cheer again. Woohoo! Nailed it, Inisuk-sensei. Inisuk coughed, waving a hand to quiet him. Ahem. All right, settle down. Let's keep it professional. Now, please come to the stage one by one to receive your forehead protectors from Hokage Sama. Rin was the first to go. She bowed politely to the third Hokage, who handed her the forehead protector with a warm smile. So, young lady, what are your plans now that you've graduated? I want to become a medical ninja, Rin replied earnestly. The Hokage nodded approvingly. Excellent. You have the potential for it. Keep working hard. If you ever face difficulties, don't hesitate to come to me for help. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Rin said with a bow before stepping down. Next came Nagano. With a smug grin, he declared, I'm going to become a great Jonin. The Hokage glanced at Inisuk, who leaned over and whispered, his father is a Chunin. The Hokage chuckled and handed over the certificate. Good luck, young man. When it was Shikawa Nara's turn, he sighed dramatically. Hokage-sama, can I just not be a ninja? The Hokage burst into laughter. Absolutely not. Next. One by one, the students went up and received their certificates. Finally, it was Obito's turn. He bounded onto the stage with his usual enthusiasm. Ah, little Obito, the Hokage sighed fondly. What do you plan to do after graduating? Obito's grin stretched wide. I'm going to become Hokage. I'll root out all evil and protect the peace of Konohagakure. Inisuk's face froze for a moment, and the Hokage seemed momentarily stunned. But then he smiled. A fine goal, Obito. But becoming Hokage isn't easy. You'll need to work very hard. Here's your forehead protector. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Obito said, beaming as he accepted it. Down in the audience, Nagano scoffed. TCH, Obito really has the nerve, huh? Shikayu nodded lazily. Yep. Gutsy guy, that one. Once everyone had received their certificates, Kasuke stepped forward again. From this moment on, you are officially ninja of Konohagakure. You will form 3-person teams under a Jonin leader and begin undertaking missions for the village. Nagano cheered. Yes. Finally. Shikaha groaned. Ugh. What a drag. Shikayu ignored the comments and read from the roster. Team 1, Nagano, Shikayu Nara, Ryoko Aburame. Team 3, Obito Uchiha, Kakashi Hatake, Rin Noara. Hearing this, Obito let out a sigh. Turns out he could change the story. After all, Kakashi and Rin were right here with him. Chapter 25, still the same Minato team. Obito turned to the girl beside him, his excitement evident. Rin, this is great! We're still in the same team. Yada, yada. Rin spread her hands in mock resignation, hiding her own joy as she teased him. What's so great about it? Now I still have to take care of you. Obito scratched his head, looking a little embarrassed, completely missing the faint smile tugging at Rin's lips. Nearby, Shikayu grumbled, resting his head in his hands. Ugh, how did I end up grouped with such a troublesome guy? So troublesome. Nagano snorted coldly, clearly annoyed. Are you talking about me, huh? Shikayu returned the snort with a lazy shrug. I didn't name names, but if the shoe fits. Nagano's face turned red with anger. You're asking for it, let's duel, Shikayu. Ryoko sighed, stepping between the two boys with a touch of exasperation. We're going to be in the same class from now on. Can't you two try to get along? After reading out the team assignments, Kasuke announced the meeting times and locations for each group. With a few final remarks, the graduation ceremony officially came to an end. Kasuke accompanied the third Hokage out, leaving the young graduates to chat amongst themselves. Shikayu walked over to Obito with a sigh. I was hoping we'd end up on the same team, but no luck. Obito patted Shikayu's shoulder reassuringly. It's fine. At least Ryoko is on your team. Just ignore Nagano, that guy's no big deal. Nagano, standing nearby, bared his teeth at Obito in mock menace. Obito, let's duel. Duel my foot. Obito thought to himself, resisting the urge to roll his eyes. Can you stop being so dramatic? Act normal for once, please. Asuma glanced over at the group of boys but didn't join in their chatter. Losing interest quickly, he shook his head and left. The girls, on the other hand, seemed to get along quite well. Rin, Shizuka, Ryoko, and Kurinal chatted and laughed together, clearly enjoying themselves. At this moment, none of the newly graduated shinobi were burdened by the worries of the future. They basked in the joy of their accomplishment, unaware that some of them might never see each other again. A clearing outside the Konoha forest. A figure dashed into the clearing, breathing heavily, and bent over to catch his breath. Sorry I'm late. Hope you didn't wait too long. A silver-haired boy crossed his arms and frowned. You're way too slow, Obito. The girl beside him nodded in agreement. We've been waiting forever? Standing between Kakashi and Rin was a blond man in a Jonin vest. His warm smile and bright blue eyes, clear like gemstones, immediately drew attention. So, you're Obito. Glad you could finally join us, the blond man said, smiling as he looked at him. Obito stared, captivated by the man's striking appearance. He even felt as though his DNA was reacting. Somewhere in his head, a voice seemed to cheer. Even though you're my enemy, you're not half bad. I'm Namikaze Minato, the man continued, introducing himself. From today onward, I'll be your Jonin instructor. I look forward to working with you all. Obito straightened up and gave a big thumbs up. Yosh! Minato clapped his hands and smiled at the three of them. Alright, since we're all here, let's start with some introductions. You already know my name. I like reading, especially novels written by Jiraiya-sama, and there's nothing I particularly dislike. He glanced at the group with a warm smile. Alright, who wants to go next? Rin eagerly raised her hand. I'll go first, Minato-sense. My name is Nowhere Rin. What I like most is spending time with my teammates. As she spoke, Rin stole a quick glance at Obito. But the boy, lost in his own world and grinning to himself, completely missed it. I don't have anything I particularly dislike, Rin added, finishing her introduction. Minato nodded approvingly before turning to Kakashi. Kakashi shrugged nonchalantly. Kakashi. I don't have anything I like or dislike. Minato rubbed the back of his head, clearly at a loss. This kid is really something. Finally, he looked at Obito. Your turn, Obito. Obito patted his chest confidently. I like bee studying. And I hate academy. My dream is to become Hokage. Minato nodded thoughtfully, piecing together his first impressions of his team. Rin seems like a sweet and dependable girl, she'll be easy to guide. But these two boys, they're quite the handful. Despite his concerns, Minato found himself smiling. Well, this should be fun. Alright, Minato said, clapping his hands together. Let's begin our first exercise. We're going to test your teamwork skills. Teamwork? Obito and Kakashi exchanged a nervous glance. Rin tilted her head in confusion. Teamwork? Minato reached into his pocket and pulled out two small silver bells, letting them dangle in front of the trio. The task is simple, he explained. Your goal is to take these bells from me. If you succeed, you pass. Obito's eyes widened. Those are such fancy bells. Where'd you get them, Sensei? Can I take a look? Minato laughed, clipping the bells to his waist. Nice try, Obito, but no. Obito sighed dramatically. Well, it was worth a shot. Sensei, Obito said, perking up again. Can we have some time to come up with a strategy? Minato nodded. Sure. You have half an hour? The three of them huddled together, whispering as they planned. All right, Kakashi, you're the most experienced here. What should we do? Obito asked. Kakashi thought for a moment before replying. Rin will act as a distraction from a distance, while you and I attack up close using the twin formation we learned at the academy. You draw his attention, and I'll focus on getting the bells. Also, we can. Obito nodded enthusiastically. Sounds good to me. Rin smiled. Let's go with Kakashi's plan. With their strategy decided, the three positioned themselves, spreading out to encircle Minato. Minato smiled as he watched them. Ah, already? Shall we begin, then? Obito adjusted his goggles and nodded firmly. Ready, Minato-sense. All right, Minato solled, raising his hand. Begin! Chapter 26, Bell Grab and System Activation. The moment the word begin was spoken, Kakashi and Obito darted out instantly, heading straight for Minato. Both launched a barrage of shuriken mid-sprint. Clink! 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 Minato smoothly drew a canal, deflecting the incoming projectiles with swift, precise movements. Suddenly, he felt a chill at his back. A small smirk appeared on his lips as he sidestepped, easily evading the sneak attack of the young girl behind him. So fast. Obito thought, his heart pounding. Is this the fastest man in the ninja world? A man who could deliver 10 Narutos per second. Walt, focus. Realizing the ranged attack wasn't working, Kakashi unsheathed the short sword strapped to his back. Kicking off with force, he closed the distance to Minato with even greater speed. Obito followed closely, a kunai in hand, coordinating with Kakashi to flank their teacher. Minato's eyes narrowed slightly. They're trying to force me to engage directly and leave an opening for Rin? He nodded inwardly. Not bad. They're showing the beginnings of teamwork. But this level of coordination isn't enough. Ha! Kakashi's short sword slashed downward, slicing through the air with a sharp whistle. Instead of retreating, Minato stepped forward. With a twist of his wrist, his kunai met the blade mid-swing. Clang! The clash produced an ear-piercing metallic screech, sparks faintly visible where their weapons connected. Minato shifted his weight subtly, redirecting Kakashi's sword off-course before slipping past him in a fluid motion. With one leap, he positioned himself behind Kakashi, using the boy as a temporary shield. This maneuver forced Rin to halt her charge and Obito to pull back his steps. Kakashi, retreats, Obito shouted. Kakashi faked an attack to cover his retreat, leaping back deftly. Obito's hands formed seals in rapid succession, his throat moving as he prepared his jutsu. Fire style, fireball jutsu. A roaring sphere of flame surged forward, scorching the air as it barreled toward Minato. A flicker of surprise passed through Minato's eyes. With a light tap of his toes against the ground, he evaded the fiery explosion effortlessly, landing just outside its radius. Obito hadn't expected to hit Minato with such a straightforward attack. He used the distraction to regroup with Kakashi, and the two launched another coordinated assault. The moment Minato touched the ground, their ferocious offensive resumed. Kakashi's blade danced with precision, each strike aiming for a vital spot. Obito's kunai and hand-to-hand combat added an unpredictable rhythm, giving their assault extra weight. Meanwhile, Minato deflected a stray projectile Rin had thrown, observing the trio with growing approval. Not bad. Kakashi's combat skills were already approaching that of some Jonin. Obito's overall ability wasn't far behind seasoned Chunin. No wonder Lord Third insisted I take this team under my wing. They're promising, all of them. The fight continued, Minato gradually guiding their movements toward the spot where they planned their earlier strategy. Now! Kakashi shouted in a low voice. Got it, Obito responded. Together, they forced Minato to take a step back. Behind him, the seemingly flat ground suddenly collapsed, revealing a deep PLT. Minato's lips curved up ever so slightly. Oh, they even prepared a trap? Very good. Feigning surprise, he leapt into the air but intentionally paused mid-motion, leading himself. The three students lunged toward him simultaneously. In the final moment, a small hand grasped the bell hanging from Minato's waist. All four landed on the ground. Kakashi knelt, slowly opening his palm to reveal the bell resting quietly within. Obito collapsed to the ground, panting heavily. Phew, we did it! We actually did it! Rin, fists clenched, exclaimed excitedly, yes. Minato smiled warmly, clearly proud of his team. Excellent. I hereby declare that all of you have passed the test. Just then, a long-forgotten sound echoed in Obito's mind. System reactivated. Congratulations. You've received Thunder. Finally! Obito thought, nearly trembling. The system is back. 2 years ago, he had chosen to endure and wait for an opportunity. And now, the system acknowledged his choice as complete. So the opportunity was becoming Minato-sensei's student? No matter. The system's return was all that mattered. Focusing his thoughts, he examined the new reward. Thunder, in moments of life and death, your attacks will be imbued with the power of lightning like an elder silently watching over you, helping you shatter the darkness with thunderous might. Reading this, Obito felt a familiar, comforting presence, as though a certain cool uncle figure had returned. Overcome with emotion, Obito burst into tears. Wah! Minato froze, startled. Obito? What's wrong? This cheerful boy was suddenly bawling his eyes out, leaving the legendary Yellow Flash utterly at a loss. Who was he? Where was he? And what should he do? Between sobs, Obito managed to choke out, "I'm just so happy to be your student." Minato sighed in relief, gently patting Obito on the back. "I'm happy to have students like you too. Now, don't cry." Kakashi, arms crossed, thought silently, "You're celebrating way too early." Even Rin joined in comforting Obito, though he continued sniffling. Finally, Minato offered a suggestion. "Alright, Obito, how about this? To celebrate the formation of our team, I'll treat everyone to dinner tonight. Sound good?" Obito perked up, wiping his tears. "Really? Then, could we maybe have barbecue?" Minatox. At the barbecue restaurant, the four sat together, Minato grilling meat for his students. "Starting tomorrow," he began, "you'll officially begin taking on missions." Obito, chewing enthusiastically, lit up. "Finally! I've been dying to get out there." Minato placed freshly cooked meat on Obito's plate and explained, "Though at first, you'll mainly handle tasks within the village, finding lost pets, recovering missing items, that sort of thing." Obito sighed. "Figures we'd have to deal with chores like that." Everyone knew that every newly formed team's first mission was chasing after cats. Rin didn't seem to mind. Starting small and taking it step by step isn't a bad idea. Minato turned to Kakashi. "With your experience in combat, I imagine these tasks might feel tedious. But I expect you to give them your best effort." Kakashi nodded faintly, his gaze briefly flicking toward Obito. "If I have to waste time, so be it." Obito grinned, raising his cup. "Let's toast to Team Minato." "Cheers!" Four cups clinked together, and their faces lit up with smiles. From that day on, they would grow to become one another's most irreplaceable bonds. Chapter 27, Tree Climbing Practice. The next day. Just as Obito had expected, their team's first assigned mission was none other than finding a missing cat. The three decided to split up and meet back at the designated spot before lunch. "Nope. Not here either." Rin wandered through the streets and alleys, diligently searching every corner, but the cat was nowhere to be found. Rounding a corner, she ran into Kakashi and quickly waved him over. "Kakashi! Did you find it?" Kakashi shook his head. "No, I came up empty-handed on my side too." Rin sighed, brushing her slightly messy hair out of her face. "Me neither. Who knew finding a pet could be this troublesome?" Kakashi nodded in agreement. "Even so, if we can't handle something this simple, we'll never be ready for real missions." "Oh, by the way, where's Obito?" Rin shrugged helplessly. Obito said he had an idea he wanted to try out. No clue where he ran off to. By midday, at their agreed meeting point, Obito appeared with a big grin, carrying a small cat in one arm and several bags in the other. "Look! Found the cat. Big thanks to the grandmas who helped out." He raised the bags with a proud smile. "They even gave me some snacks. Let's share them later." Rin exclaimed in amazement, "Obito, your popularity with grandmas is incredible. All those times being late have finally paid off." Obito puffed up with pride, tilting his head smugly. "Well, of course. They don't call me the Grandma Whisperer for nothing. If I ever wanted to take it easy in life, I could coast on soft meals until the end of my days." Minato chuckled and added, "A small kindness brings great rewards. Obito, this is the fruit of your goodwill." Obito glanced at Kakashi, who stood silently nearby, looking a bit disheartened. "TCH, Obito clicked his tongue, shaking his head. "This guy's still young, he doesn't understand how important connections are yet. Just look at the past Hokages. If you know, you know. If you don't, well, explaining won't help." That afternoon, the four gathered at a training ground near the forest. For a ninja, completing missions was important, but daily training was essential. The soles of your feet are the hardest place to gather chakra. Climbing trees with your feet will help you refine, maintain, and control your chakra more effectively, Minato explained. He clapped his hands with a smile. Rin, you go first. Rin nodded, looking a little nervous as she charged toward the nearest tree. Just before reaching it, she leaped up, planting one foot on the trunk. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Ah! The chakra in her feet suddenly dispersed, and without the adhesion, she flipped backward off the tree. Looking sheepishly at Minato, Rin waited for his reaction. Minato smiled encouragingly and nodded. Not bad for a first attempt. Keep it up. Next, your turn, Kakashi, Minato said. Kakashi gave a small nod and stepped forward. Without hesitation, he placed a foot on the tree and began walking upward effortlessly. He moved as if strolling on flat ground, steadily making his way to the top of the tree. Rin watched in awe. Kakashi, you're amazing. You did it so easily. Kakashi said nothing, turning to glance down at Obito. With a graceful leap, he descended smoothly from the treetop. Obito fumed inwardly. To him, Kakashi's actions screamed provocation. What's the big deal? It's just walking. Anyone with legs can do it. Obito stormed toward a tree, his tone defiant. Watch me show you something even cooler. Oh? Minato raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Was Obito about to demonstrate some new chakra control technique? Even Kakashi focused, curious about what Obito had up his sleeve. Go, Obito! Be careful? Rin cheered, pumping her fists. Obito turned, flashing a confident thumbs up and his brightest grin. Gotta just watch, Rin! Then, to everyone's shock, Obito pressed himself against the tree and began wriggling upward, like a snake. With his waist twisting fluidly, he slithered up the trunk in a cawing motion, occasionally flicking his tongue like a serpent tasting the air. Minato's hopeful expression froze. Rin's jaw dropped. Kakashi's eyes widened, almost bulging out of their sockets. The three were utterly dumbfounded. Who would even think of such a pose? Was this something a mammal was supposed to do? Even Orochimaru would call him unnatural. When Obito finally reached the treetop, he agilely flipped around and slid back down in the same bizarre manner. Landing lightly, he struck a triumphant pose with his hands on his hips. Well? How was it, Rin, Minato-sensei? This method I developed trains chakra control and strengthens core muscles. Genius, right? Minato opened his mouth but seemed at a loss for words. Inwardly, he regretted not vetting his students more thoroughly. Obito turned to Kakashi, his gaze challenging. Kakashi pinched the bridge of his nose, sighing deeply. He wondered why he'd ever expect anything normal from Obito. Rin remained silent, too shocked by the spectacle to respond. Did I mess up again? Obito scratched his head awkwardly, noticing their reactions. Minato finally found his voice. No. Obito's method is unique, creative, and, impressive. Obito frowned slightly. Why did those compliments feel so off? Was Minato-sensei really praising him? Before he could dwell on it, Minato continued. Kakashi, Obito, you both already have solid chakra control. From now on, your training will focus on combat practice. Forming a hand seal, Minato called out, Shadow Clone Jutsu. With a puff of smoke, a clone of Minato appeared. Follow me. We'll train deeper in the forest, said Clone Minato to the two boys. Kakashi and Obito nodded, following him into the woods. Meanwhile, original Minato turned to Rin with an encouraging smile. Rin, keep practicing tree climbing. I'll stay here to help. Rin nodded firmly. Got it, Minato-sensei. Watching the three disappear into the forest, Rin clenched her fists and steeled her resolve. Rin, you have to work hard. Kakashi and Obito are both so talented you can't fall behind. Chapter 28, Combat Training, Minato's Lesson. In the forest, Minato led Kakashi and Obito to a clearing and stopped. After carefully surveying the surroundings, he nodded with satisfaction. "All right, we'll conduct the training here," he said. Kakashi and Obito exchanged a glance, their eyes brimming with excitement. Minato formed a series of hand seals and called out in a firm voice. "The Shadow Clone Jutsu!" In the blink of an eye, the area around them was filled with layers upon layers of Minato's shadow clones. The once spacious forest clearing was now crowded with identical figures. Obito's enthusiasm flared as he marveled at the sight. "Minato-sensei, this is so cool! Can you teach me this technique?" Minato smiled, but before he could answer, one of his clones interjected. "I will if you can pass the upcoming combat training." Yash! Obito's motivation soared at the mention of a reward. He adjusted his goggles and eagerly asked, "So, Minato-sensei, what's the training?" Minato slowed his speech, explaining carefully. "In a moment, I'll throw shuriken at you two from within the forest. As long as you can hold out against my attacks for 30 minutes, you'll pass the training." Obito froze, his excitement giving way to apprehension as he glanced at the crowd of Minato clones. This seems a bit extreme." Issa. Kakashi, however, kept his composure and said in a low voice, "Minato-sensei, we're ready to start." Minato nodded, his gaze sweeping over his two students as he offered one last piece of advice. "If you can't hold out, call for a stop immediately. Don't push yourselves too hard, you could get hurt." "Understood, Minato-sensei," they both replied. At their confirmation, Minato's clones dispersed into the forest. His voice echoed from all directions. "Then, let the training begin." Kakashi drew his short sword with a practiced motion, its blade gleaming. Obito grumbled but pulled out two kunai, gripping them tightly. The forest came alive with the sound of shuriken cutting through the air. Whoosh! 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 The attacks came from all angles, each trajectory perfectly calculated to cut off their escape routes. Clang clang! Clang! Kakashi's short sword became a blur as it deflected every incoming shuriken, creating an impenetrable defense. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal. Not to be outdone, Obito's kunai worked just as furiously, knocking shuriken to the ground until they littered the clearing. Hidden in the shadows, Minato nodded in approval. Kakashi's skill is as expected, but Obito's performance is a pleasant surprise, he thought. "Looks like I need to increase the difficulty a bit," Minato murmured to himself. 20 minutes later. Obito muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible. "Minato-sensei's hand speed is insane. How does Kushina-sensei even keep up with him?" The shuriken attacks grew faster and more relentless, giving them no time to catch their breath. It seemed as though Minato's clones were tireless, shortening the interval between each wave of projectiles. Obito glanced at Kakashi, who was visibly struggling but still maintaining his stance. "Hey, Kakashi, how long has it been?" he shouted. Kakashi's breathing was heavy, his exhaustion evident. "Probably over 20 minutes. 10 minutes left at most." Encouraged, Obito grinned. "Yash! Let's push through." But his enthusiasm waned quickly. After a few more rounds of attacks, he felt his arms growing numb. His relentless training with a sword had built his endurance, but even he had limits. As another wave of shuriken hurtled toward him, Obito clapped his hands together and slammed them onto the ground. Earth release, Earth-style Wally. A short, dog-headed earthen wall rose just in time to shield him. The shuriken struck the wall with a cacophony of metallic thuds, leaving Obito momentarily safe but deeply unsettled. Kakashi glanced over mid-deflection, raising an eyebrow. "You used up what little chakra you had left to carve a dog head into your earth wall?" "Why?" Obito clicked his tongue, ignoring the jab. "Look who's talking. Last time you overexerted yourself, you were holding Raikiri and whining for half the episode. Not borrowing you my account this time." As the timer ticked down to the final 30 seconds, Obito exhaled in relief. "Looks like we've got this in the bag." Just as the thought crossed his mind, Minato appeared behind him in a blur of yellow and sent him flying with a swift kick. 777. Obito soared through the air, confusion written all over his face. Seeing Kakashi land beside him in a similar fashion brought him some small comfort. They groaned as they picked themselves up from the ground. Kakashi looked at Minato with confusion. Minato-sensei, what was that for? Minato's expression turned serious, his usual warm demeanor replaced by a stern intensity. This is your first lesson in real combat. In a battle, the enemy will never follow the rules or act according to your expectations. On the battlefield, they will use every method to catch you off guard and overwhelm you. If you're not prepared for the unexpected, you'll be courting death. Kakashi and Obito mulled over Minato's words, their expressions gradually shifting as understanding dawned. After a moment, Kakashi nodded. I understand, Minato-sensei. Me too, Obito added, though his tone was tinged with disappointment. Guess I'm not getting the shadow clone technique today. Being broke hurts. Seeing their acceptance, Minato's serious expression softened into a smile. You both performed well. Consider this training a success. He formed another set of hand seals, summoning a shadow clone. The clone spoke to Obito. Obito, come with me. I'll teach you the shadow clone technique. Meanwhile, the real Minato turned to Kakashi. Kakashi, stay here. We'll continue sparring to refine your taijutsu. Yes, Minato-sensei, the two chorused. Obito followed the shadow clone to a quiet area. Minato began explaining. The shadow clone technique is a B-rank jutsu developed by the second Hokage. It creates physical clones using chakra just like the one you see now. Each clone has independent thought and a certain level of resilience. When the technique is dispelled, all of their memories and experiences return to the original body, ready to be used again. As Obito listened, he nodded enthusiastically. Shadow clone bros are so selfless. Willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Truly touching. The next day. Just as Obito had expected, their team's first assigned mission was none other than finding a missing cat. The three decided to split up and meet back at the designated spot before lunch. Nope. Not here either. Rin wandered through the streets and alleys, diligently searching every corner, but the cat was nowhere to be found. Rounding a corner, she ran into Kakashi and quickly waved him over. Kakashi! Did you find it? Kakashi shook his head. No, I came up empty-handed on my side too. Rin sighed, brushing her slightly messy hair out of her face. Me neither. Who knew finding a pet could be this troublesome? Kakashi nodded in agreement. Even so, if we can't handle something this simple, we'll never be ready for real missions. Oh, by the way, where's Obito? Rin shrugged helplessly. Obito said he had an idea he wanted to try out. No clue where he ran off to. By midday, at their agreed meeting point, Obito appeared with a big grin, carrying a small cat in one arm and several bags in the other. Look! Found the cat. Big thanks to the grandmas who helped out. He raised the bags with a proud smile. They even gave me some snacks. Let's share them later. Rin exclaimed in amazement, Obito, your popularity with grandmas is incredible. All those times. Being late have finally paid off. Obito puffed up with pride, tilting his head smugly. Well, of course. They don't call me the Grandma Whisperer for nothing. If I ever wanted to take it easy in life, I could coast on soft meals until the end of my days. Minato chuckled and added, a small kindness brings great rewards. Obito, this is the fruit of your goodwill. Obito glanced at Kakashi, who stood silently nearby, looking a bit disheartened. TCH, Obito clicked his tongue, shaking his head. This guy's still young, he doesn't understand how important connections are yet. Just look at the past Hokages. If you know, you know. If you don't, well, explaining won't help. That afternoon, the four gathered at a training ground near the forest. For a ninja, completing missions was important, but daily training was essential. The soles of your feet are the hardest place to gather chakra. Climbing trees with your feet will help you refine, maintain, and control your chakra more effectively, Minato explained. He clapped his hands with a smile. Rin, you go first. Rin nodded, looking a little nervous as she charged toward the nearest tree. Just before reaching it, she leaped up, planting one foot on the trunk. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Ah! The chakra in her feet suddenly dispersed, and without the adhesion, she flipped backward off the tree. Looking sheepishly at Minato, Rin waited for his reaction. Minato smiled encouragingly and nodded. Not bad for a first attempt. Keep it up. Next, your turn, Kakashi, Minato said. Kakashi gave a small nod and stepped forward. Without hesitation, he placed a foot on the tree and began walking upward effortlessly. He moved as if strolling on flat ground, steadily making his way to the top of the tree. Rin watched in awe. Kakashi, you're amazing. You did it so easily. Kakashi said nothing, turning to glance down at Obito. With a graceful leap, he descended smoothly from the treetop. Obito fumed inwardly. To him, Kakashi's actions screamed provocation. What's the big deal? It's just walking. Anyone with legs can do it. Obito stormed toward a tree, his tone defiant. Watch me show you something even cooler. Oh? Minato raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Was Obito about to demonstrate some new chakra control technique? Even Kakashi focused, curious about what Obito had up his sleeve. Go, Obito! Be careful? Rin cheered, pumping her fists. Obito turned, flashing a confident thumbs up and his brightest grin. Got it, just watch, Rin! Then, to everyone's shock, Obito pressed himself against the tree and began wriggling upward, like a snake. With his waist twisting fluidly, he slithered up the trunk in a cawing motion, occasionally flicking his tongue like a serpent tasting the air. Minato's hopeful expression froze. Rin's jaw dropped. Kakashi's eyes widened, almost bulging out of their sockets. The three were utterly dumbfounded. Who would even think of such a pose? Was this something a mammal was supposed to do? Even Orochimaru would call him unnatural. When Obito finally reached the treetop, he agilely flipped around and slid back down in the same bizarre manner. Landing lightly, he struck a triumphant pose with his hands on his hips. Well? How was it, Rin, Minato-sensei? This method I developed trains chakra control and strengthens core muscles. Genius, right? Minato opened his mouth but seemed at a loss for words. Inwardly, he regretted not vetting his students more thoroughly. Obito turned to Kakashi, his gaze challenging. Kakashi pinched the bridge of his nose, sighing deeply. He wondered why he'd ever expect anything normal from Obito. Rin remained silent, too shocked by the spectacle to respond. Did I mess up again? Obito scratched his head awkwardly, noticing their reactions. Minato finally found his voice. No. Obito's method is unique, creative, and, impressive. Obito frowned slightly. Why did those compliments feel so off? Was Minato-sensei really praising him? Before he could dwell on it, Minato continued. Kakashi, Obito, you both already have solid chakra control. From now on, your training will focus on combat practice. Forming a hand seal, Minato called out, Shadow Clone Jutsu. With a puff of smoke, a clone of Minato appeared. Follow me. We'll train deeper in the forest, said Clone Minato to the two boys. Kakashi and Obito nodded, following him into the woods. Meanwhile, original Minato turned to Rin with an encouraging smile. Rin, keep practicing tree climbing. I'll stay here to help. Rin nodded firmly. Got it, Minato-sensei. Watching the three disappear into the forest, Rin clenched her fists and steeled her resolve. Rin, you have to work hard. Kakashi and Obito are both so talented you can't fall behind. Chapter 29, Obito's wild schemes. Minato continued explaining the finer points of the Shadow Clone Jutsu to Obito. Alright, that's about it. Give it a try, Obito, Minato encouraged with a smile. Obito nodded, forming the ram seal with both hands. Slowly, he began channeling his chakra. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Poof! A puff of smoke appeared and quickly dissipated, revealing a second Obito standing beside him. However, this clone wasn't quite right. Its head was comically larger than its body. I think I failed, Obito muttered, embarrassed, as he dispelled the oversized clone. Minato chuckled warmly. No worries. B-rank jutsu isn't something you master on the first try. Let's go again. Obito clenched his fists and nodded resolutely. Yash! The moon rose silently into the night sky, its silver glow blanketing the earth. Obito finally stopped practicing, slumping in frustration. Despite his efforts, the Shadow Clone Jutsu continued to elude him. Minato noticed his student's dejected state and patted him gently on the head. Don't lose heart, Obito. I promise, within a week, you'll have it down. Obito's eyes sparkled with determination as he nodded firmly. I understand, since. The team regrouped outside the forest, marking the end of the day's training. I'm heading off. See you all tomorrow, Obito said, his spirits still low as he waved goodbye to Kakashi and the others before departing. Rin watched him leave, a hint of concern in her voice. What's wrong with Obito? Usually, she paused, her thoughts trailing off. Usually, he would walk her home. Minato spoke softly, it's probably because his training didn't go as planned today. For some reason, Obito holds himself to very high standards. Kakashi gazed at Obito's retreating figure, idly adjusting his forehead protector. If I'd been more talented when I was younger, I could have mastered Susanoo and Double Camel by now. Obito grumbled to himself, humming a melancholy tune as he trudged back home. After exchanging brief pleasantries with his grandmother, he threw himself onto his bed. Today's training hadn't gone well, leaving him restless and irritable. Less than 5 years until my death, and yet. Obito sighed deeply. Despite being ahead of his peers in strength, he knew he was still far from being a true powerhouse. In the eyes of real shinobi elites, I'm just a rookie. I've got a long way to go before I can stand at the top. He listed the impending tragedies in his mind, the Battle of Canopy Bridge, Rin's death, the Nine Tails Rampage, the downfall of the Uchiha. Each weighed on him like a mountain, suffocating and relentless. Ugh! With his current strength, resisting these events felt like a fool's errand. But doing nothing wasn't an option either. What can I even do? Obito stared at the ceiling, deep in thought. The system was his only advantage, but he needed to come up with a strategy of his own. His mind raced, entertaining increasingly outlandish ideas until inspiration struck. Sitting bolt upright, he exclaimed, I've got it. He had a plan to prevent the Nine Tails Rampage. No matter what Madara tries or who he uses, this idea will work. Obito muttered to himself. The root cause of the Nine Tails Rampage was Kushina, the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Her seal weakened during childbirth, allowing the masked man himself in the future to strike. So, while Konoha is still strong, I can make sure Naruto is born sooner. Obito's eyes gleamed. Or, I could just ensure Sensei can't have kids at all. That'd solve the problem too. The more he thought about it, the more plausible the idea seemed. Sensei's done so much for me. This is the least I can do for him. Yep, it's decided. Just then, the system's interface appeared, presenting him with new options. Option 1, secretly plot to ensure Naruto's early birth. Reward, 1 unit of chakra. Option 2, secretly plot to render Minato infertile. Reward, Byakugan X2. Option 3, secretly plot to ensure Kushina's infertility. Reward, Byakugan X2. Option 4, kill yourself now to prevent the Nine Tails Rampage. Reward, VIP grade coffin service. Obito didn't even bother with the last three options. The system's bizarre choices were nothing new. Without hesitation, he chose the first. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 11. A unit of chakra as a reward? Not bad, Obito thought. Although it was only 0.01 of what Naruto could manage, it was better than nothing. Lying back on his bed, Obito smirked. Now, how do I make Sensei hurry things along? He soon hatched a meticulous plan. When it came to scheming, Obito prided himself on being second to none. The next day, a rare day off, Obito strolled through Konoha until he found a small pharmacy. A striking woman sat behind the counter, leaning on her elbow, her other arm resting on the desk. Her posture, combined with her alluring figure, immediately caught Obito's attention. As he stepped inside, she lazily brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, her soft voice breaking the silence. "Hey there, little guy. What can I get for you?" Obito's cheeks flushed. He cleared his throat and stammered. I need some, supplements. The kind that helps couples, have better conversations at night." The woman raised an eyebrow, a mischievous glint in her eye. She glanced at Obito skeptically, her gaze briefly lingering on him. "And what does a kid like you need that kind of medicine for?" Damn it! Obito thought. He'd been underestimated. "They're not for me. They're for my sensei and his wife," he declared. The woman gave him a thumbs up, her lips curving into a sly smile. "A thoughtful kid like you is hard to come by." Obito puffed up with pride. Of course, no one in the shinobi world could match his filial piety. As the woman prepared the supplements, Obito couldn't help but admire her from behind. This trip had already been worth it. When she returned, though, she placed a small bag on the counter and named a price that made Obito's jaw drop. "Why is it so expensive?" She shrugged with a playful glint in her eye. "So, do you want it or not, little guy?" Grinding his teeth, Obito emptied his savings and slammed the money onto the counter. "Deal!" In the forest, Minato led Kakashi and Obito to a clearing and stopped. After carefully surveying the surroundings, he nodded with satisfaction. "All right, we'll conduct the training here," he said. Kakashi and Obito exchanged a glance, their eyes brimming with excitement. Minato formed a series of hand seals and called out in a firm voice. "The Shadow Clone Jutsu!" In the blink of an eye, the area around them was filled with layers upon layers of Minato's shadow clones. The once spacious forest clearing was now crowded with identical figures. Obito's enthusiasm flared as he marveled at the sight. "Minato sensei, this is so cool! Can you teach me this technique?" Minato smiled, but before he could answer, one of his clones interjected. "I will if you can pass the upcoming combat training." Yosh! Obito's motivation soared at the mention of a reward. He adjusted his goggles and eagerly asked, "So, Minato-sensei, what's the training?" Minato slowed his speech, explaining carefully. "In a moment, I'll throw shuriken at you two from within the forest. As long as you can hold out against my attacks for 30 minutes, you'll pass the training." Obito froze, his excitement giving way to apprehension as he glanced at the crowd of Minato clones. This seems a bit extreme." Kakashi, however, kept his composure and said in a low voice, "Minato-sensei, we're ready to start." Minato nodded, his gaze sweeping over his two students as he offered one last piece of advice. "If you can't hold out, call for a stop immediately. Don't push yourselves too hard, you could get hurt." "Understood, Minato-sensei," they both replied. At their confirmation, Minato's clones dispersed into the forest. His voice echoed from all directions. "Then, let the training begin." Kakashi drew his short sword with a practiced motion, its blade gleaming. Obito grumbled but pulled out two kunai, gripping them tightly. The forest came alive with the sound of shuriken cutting through the air. Whoosh! 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 The attacks came from all angles, each trajectory perfectly calculated to cut off their escape routes. Clang! 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 Kakashi's short sword became a blur as it deflected every incoming shuriken, creating an impenetrable defense. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal. Not to be outdone, Obito's canal worked just as furiously, knocking shuriken to the ground until they littered the clearing. Hidden in the shadows, Minato nodded in approval. Kakashi's skill is as expected, but Obito's performance is a pleasant surprise, he thought. Looks like I need to increase the difficulty a bit, Minato murmured to himself. 20 minutes later. Obito muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible. Minato Sensel's hand speed is insane. How does Kushina Senset even keep up with him? The shuriken attacks grew faster and more relentless, giving them no time to catch their breath. It seemed as though Minato's clones were tireless, shortening the interval between each wave of projectiles. Obito glanced at Kakashi, who was visibly struggling but still maintaining his stance. "Hey, Kakashi, how long has it been?" he shouted. Kakashi's breathing was heavy, his exhaustion evident. "Probably over 20 minutes. 10 minutes left at most." Encouraged, Obito grinned. "Yosh! Let's push through." But his enthusiasm waned quickly. After a few more rounds of attacks, he felt his arms growing numb. His relentless training with a sword had built his endurance, but even he had limits. As another wave of shuriken hurtled toward him, Obito clapped his hands together and slammed them onto the ground. Earth release, Earth-style Wally. A short, dog-headed earthen wall rose just in time to shield him. The shuriken struck the wall with a cacophony of metallic thuds, leaving Obito momentarily safe but deeply unsettled. Kakashi glanced over mid-deflection, raising an eyebrow. "You used up what little chakra you had left to carve a dog head into your earth wall?" "Why?" Obito clicked his tongue, ignoring the jab. "Look who's talking. Last time you overexerted yourself, you were holding Raikiri and whining for the attacks came from all angles, each trajectory perfectly calculated to cut off their escape routes." Clang! 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 Kakashi's short sword became a blur as it deflected every incoming shuriken, creating an impenetrable defense. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal. Not to be outdone, Obito's canal worked just as furiously, knocking shuriken to the ground until they littered the clearing. Hidden in the shadows, Minato nodded in approval. Kakashi's skill is as expected, but Obito's performance is a pleasant surprise, he thought. Looks like I need to increase the difficulty a bit, Minato murmured to himself. 20 minutes later. Obito muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible. Minato Sensel's hand speed is insane. How does Kushina Senset even keep up with him? The shuriken attacks grew faster and more relentless, giving them no time to catch their breath. It seemed as though Minato's clones were tireless, shortening the interval between each wave of projectiles. Obito glanced at Kakashi, who was visibly struggling but still maintaining his stance. "Hey, Kakashi, how long has it been?" he shouted. Kakashi's breathing was heavy, his exhaustion evident. "Probably over 20 minutes. 10 minutes left at most." Encouraged, Obito grinned. "Yosh! Let's push through." But his enthusiasm waned quickly. After a few more rounds of attacks, he felt his arms growing numb. His relentless training with a sword had built his endurance, but even he had limits. As another wave of shuriken hurtled toward him, Obito clapped his hands together and slammed them onto the ground. Earth release, Earth-style Wally. A short, dog-headed earthen wall rose just in time to shield him. The shuriken struck the wall with a cacophony of metallic thuds, leaving Obito momentarily safe but deeply unsettled. Kakashi glanced over mid-deflection, raising an eyebrow. "You used up what little chakra you had left to carve a dog head into your earth wall?" "Why?" Obito clicked his tongue, ignoring the jab. "Look who's talking. Last time you overexerted yourself, you were holding Raikiri and whining for half the episode. Not borrowing you my account this time." As the timer ticked down to the final 30 seconds, Obito exhaled in relief. Looks like we've got this in the bag. Just as the thought crossed his mind, Minato appeared behind him in a blur of yellow and sent him flying with a swift kick. Obito soared through the air, confusion written all over his face. Seeing Kakashi land beside him in a similar fashion brought him some small comfort. They groaned as they picked themselves up from the ground. Kakashi looked at Minato with confusion. Minato-sensei, what was that for? Minato's expression turned serious, his usual warm demeanor replaced by a stern intensity. This is your first lesson in real combat. In a battle, the enemy will never follow the rules or act according to your expectations. On the battlefield, they will use every method to catch you off guard and overwhelm you. If you're not prepared for the unexpected, you'll be courting death. Kakashi and Obito mulled over Minato's words, their expressions gradually shifting as understanding dawned. After a moment, Kakashi nodded. I understand, Minato-sensei. Me too, Obito added, though his tone was tinged with disappointment. Guess I'm not getting the shadow clone technique today. Being broke hurts. Seeing their acceptance, Minato's serious expression softened into a smile. You both performed well. Consider this training a success. He formed another set of hand seals, summoning a shadow clone. The clone spoke to Obito. Obito, come with me. I'll teach you the shadow clone technique. Meanwhile, the real Minato turned to Kakashi. Kakashi, stay here. We'll continue sparring to refine your taijutsu. Yes, Minato-sensei, the two chorused. Obito followed the shadow clone to a quiet area. Minato began explaining. The shadow clone technique is a B-rank jutsu developed by the second Hokage. It creates physical clones using chakra just like the one you see now. Each clone has independent thought and a certain level of resilience. When the technique is dispelled, all of their memories and experiences return to the original body, ready to be used again. As Obito listened, he nodded enthusiastically. Shadow clone bros are so selfless. Willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Truly touching. The next day. Just as Obito had expected, their team's first assigned mission was none other than finding a missing cat. The three decided to split up and meet back at the designated spot before lunch. Nope. Not here either. Rin wandered through the streets and alleys, diligently searching every corner, but the cat was nowhere to be found. Rounding a corner, she ran into Kakashi and quickly waved him over. Kakashi! Did you find it? Kakashi shook his head. No, I came up empty-handed on my side too. Rin sighed, brushing her slightly messy hair out of her face. Me neither. Who knew finding a pet could be this troublesome? Kakashi nodded in agreement. Even so, if we can't handle something this simple, we'll never be ready for real missions. Oh, by the way, where's Obito? Rin shrugged helplessly. Obito said he had an idea he wanted to try out. No clue where he ran off to. By midday, at their agreed meeting point, Obito appeared with a big grin, carrying a small cat in one arm and several bags in the other. Look! Found the cat. Big thanks to the grandmas who helped out. He raised the bags with a proud smile. They even gave me some snacks. Let's share them later. Rin exclaimed in amazement, Obito, your popularity with grandmas is incredible. All those times being late have finally paid off. Obito puffed up with pride, tilting his head smugly. Well, of course. They don't call me the Grandma Whisperer for nothing. If I ever wanted to take it easy in life, I could coast on soft meals until the end of my days. Minato chuckled and added, a small kindness brings great rewards. Obito, this is the fruit of your goodwill. Obito glanced at Kakashi, who stood silently nearby, looking a bit disheartened. TCH, 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 Obito clicked his tongue, shaking his head. This guy's still young, he doesn't understand how important connections are yet. Just look at the past Hokages. If you know, you know. If you don't, well, explaining won't help. That afternoon, the four gathered at a training ground near the forest. For a ninja, completing missions was important, but daily training was essential. The soles of your feet are the hardest place to gather chakra. Climbing trees with your feet will help you refine, maintain, and control your chakra more effectively, Minato explained. He clapped his hands with a smile. Rin, you go first. Rin nodded, looking a little nervous as she charged toward the nearest tree. Just before reaching it, she leaped up, planting one foot on the trunk. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Ah! The chakra in her feet suddenly dispersed, and without the adhesion, she flipped backward off the tree. Looking sheepishly at Minato, Rin waited for his reaction. Minato smiled encouragingly and nodded. Not bad for a first attempt. Keep it up. Next, your turn, Kakashi, Minato said. Kakashi gave a small nod and stepped forward. Without hesitation, he placed a foot on the tree and began walking upward effortlessly. He moved as if strolling on flat ground, steadily making his way to the top of the tree. Rin watched in awe. Kakashi, you're amazing. You did it so easily. Kakashi said nothing, turning to glance down at Obito. With a graceful leap, he descended smoothly from the treetop. Obito fumed inwardly. To him, Kakashi's actions screamed provocation. What's the big deal? It's just walking. Anyone with legs can do it. Obito stormed toward a tree, his tone defiant. Watch me show you something even cooler. Oh? Minato raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Was Obito about to demonstrate some new chakra control technique? Even Kakashi focused, curious about what Obito had up his sleeve. Go, Obito! Be careful! Rin cheered, pumping her fists. Obito turned, flashing a confident thumbs up and his brightest grin. Gotta just watch, Rin! Then, to everyone's shock, Obito pressed himself against the tree and began wriggling upward, like a snake. With his waist twisting fluidly, he slithered up the trunk in a cawing motion, occasionally flicking his tongue like a serpent tasting the air. Minato's hopeful expression froze. Rin's jaw dropped. Kakashi's eyes widened, almost bulging out of their sockets. The three were utterly dumbfounded. Who would even think of such a pose? Was this something a mammal was supposed to do? Even Orochimaru would call him unnatural. When Obito finally reached the treetop, he agilely flipped around and slid back down in the same bizarre manner. Landing lightly, he struck a triumphant pose with his hands on his hips. Well? How was it, Rin, Minato-sensei? This method I developed trains chakra control and strengthens core muscles. Genius, right? Minato opened his mouth but seemed at a loss for words. Inwardly, he regretted not vetting his students more thoroughly. Obito turned to Kakashi, his gaze challenging. Kakashi pinched the bridge of his nose, sighing deeply. He wondered why he'd ever expect anything normal from Obito. Rin remained silent, too shocked by the spectacle to respond. Did I mess up again? Obito scratched his head awkwardly, noticing their reactions. Minato finally found his voice. No. Obito's method is unique, creative, and, impressive. Obito frowned slightly. Why did those compliments feel so off? Was Minato-sensei really praising him? Before he could dwell on it, Minato continued. Kakashi, Obito, you both already have solid chakra control. From now on, your training will focus on combat practice. Forming a hand seal, Minato called out, Shadow Clone Jutsu. With a puff of smoke, a clone of Minato appeared. Follow me. We'll train deeper in the forest, said Clone Minato to the two boys. Kakashi and Obito nodded, following him into the woods. Meanwhile, original Minato turned to Rin with an encouraging smile. Rin, keep practicing tree climbing. I'll stay here to help. Rin nodded firmly. Got it, Minato-sensei. Watching the three disappear into the forest, Rin clenched her fists and steeled her resolve. Rin, you have to work hard. Kakashi and Obito are both so talented you can't fall behind. Chapter 30, A Warm Gift for Sensei. Sigh. Watching helplessly as half of his life savings vanished, Obito felt like his heart was bleeding. Minato-sensei. If you don't put in a few extra hours at night to make this worthwhile, you're failing my hard-earned money. Carrying the medicine package, he hurried out of the pharmacy, eager to leave this heartbreaking place behind. The shopkeeper's wife, who had been watching the scene, chuckled softly. What an amusing little guy, she murmured. Back at home, Obito carefully placed the medicine package on a shelf before rushing into his grandmother's room. Grandma, I'd like to take a jar of your homemade fruit wine to give to my teacher. My teacher is so kind to me. I thought I'd bring him something as a thank you gift. Hearing her grandson's words, Grandma was more than supportive. Of course, sweetheart. Do you need me to come with you, little Obito? And one jar, will that be enough? If not, take more. We have plenty of fruit wine at home. Obito beamed. I can handle it, Grandma. One jar should be enough. I'm just worried my teacher's body might not handle it well. Grandma tilted her head in mild confusion at her grandson's comment but nodded anyway. So his teacher has a low tolerance for alcohol? Even fruit wine makes him cautious. After explaining to his grandmother, Obito went to the kitchen, picked up a jar of fruit wine, and brought it back to his room. He opened the medicine package and carefully read the attached instructions. Asterisk 60 packets in total. Mix one with water daily, lasting 2 months. Got it. Obito fell into thought. After a while, he opened the wine jar and unceremoniously dumped in 10 packets of the medicine. This should do the trick, he muttered under his breath. He then dashed to the kitchen to grab a small spoon and stirred the mixture until the powder fully dissolved. Taking a tiny sip, he smacked his lips thoughtfully. Still tastes sweet and fruity. Shouldn't be a problem. Satisfied, Obito sealed the jar and headed out. Grandma, I'm off. I'll be back soon. Grandma's voice called from inside the house. Take it slow, Obito. I will, Grandma. To make it easier for his students to reach him, Minato had given all 3 of them his home address. Following the directions, Obito jogged all the way to his teacher's house and soon found himself at the front door. Knock, knock. A female voice came from inside. Huh? Minato, someone's knocking on the door. Minato's voice followed. You keep cooking, Kushina, I'll check. Soft footsteps approached, and the door opened. Obito? Minato looked down in surprise at his student. What brings you here? Obito grinned from ear to ear. I came to visit you, Sensei. My grandma just brewed some fruit wine, so I brought you a jar. He handed the jar over to Minato, who accepted it with a smile and ruffled the boy's hair. How thoughtful of you, Obito. Come inside and have a seat. Your, teacher's wife is cooking. Stay and join us for dinner. Obito's head shook furiously. Kushina-sensei's cooking? I'd rather starve. No need, Sensei. My grandma already has dinner ready at home. I wouldn't want to trouble you. With that, he gave a playful wave. See you tomorrow, Sensei. See you tomorrow, Obito. Minato watched his student run off, then glanced at the wine jar in his hand with a warm smile. What a good kid. Carrying the jar, he returned to the house just as Kushina came out of the kitchen, setting food on the table. She noticed the jar immediately, her curiosity piqued. What's that? Minato lifted the jar with a chuckle. My new student brought this over fruit wine his grandma made. Kushina's eyebrows arched in interest. Your student's pretty considerate. Let me have a look. She took the jar from him, opened it, and sniffed. Her eyes lit up. Smells amazing. Let's have some with dinner. Minato nodded indulgently and fetched 2 small cups from the kitchen. Sure. Being seasoned shinobi, neither sensed anything unusual about the wine. Little did they know that identifying medicinal properties hidden in a harmless-looking gift wasn't as straightforward. Later that evening, as Obito lay in bed, he kicked off his blanket with a frustrated groan. His whole body felt like it was on fire. What's going on? Could it be from that one sip of the wine? A horrifying thought struck him. If I feel like this after just a taste, then Sensei and Kushina-sensei must be. Minato, Obito. Thank you for this. But I'm utterly doomed. At Minato's house, after sharing a few cups of wine, a peculiar sensation coursed through Minato's body like a warm electric current. He looked at Kushina and blurted out, "Kushina, you're absolutely stunning today." Kushina smirked, her legs brushing against his under the table. "Oh? Are you saying I'm not beautiful every day?" Minato's survival instincts kicked in. "You're always beautiful. Just extra gorgeous tonight." Laughing, Kushina stood and plopped herself into Minato's lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. "You're getting better at sweet-talking, huh?" Minato felt his face heat up as Kushina pulled him closer. "Minato. It's still early, but I feel like resting." Without a second thought, Minato grabbed a kunai and hurled it at the window. Activating Flying Thunder God, he pulled the curtain shut in an instant. Leaning close to her ear, he whispered, "Now. It's dark." Later that night, Minato sighed as he tidied the mess they had made. Exhausted but amused, he muttered, "That fruit wine really packs a punch." From the bed, Kushina's bright eyes sparkled in the dark. "Honey, how about another cup? We can chat some more." Minato froze. Kushina. I have to lead my team tomorrow." Chapter 31, A Ridiculous Multiple-Choice Question. Mount Myaboku. Deep within the towering mountain range stood a palace. Inside, a massive toad sat upon a colossal throne engraved with the Kongfor sage. The toad was enormous, with orange skin, a scholar's hat perched on its head, and a string of prayer beads around its neck. At the center of the beads was a gem inscribed with the kanji 4C. This was the Great Toad Sage. For many years, the Great Toad Sage had been in deep slumber. But today, his eyes suddenly snapped open, revealing a flash of astonishment in their golden depths. Moments ago, he sensed a ripple shift in the ninja world. The prophecy he once made had inexplicably changed, morphing into something incomprehensible. He pondered the new vision, stroking his chin, before finally speaking. "Fukasaku, Shima, summon Jiraiya. Tell him I have urgent matters to discuss." Two smaller toads hopped forward. Fukasaku tilted his head in surprise. "Did you foresee something new?" The Great Toad Sage nodded, though his tone carried uncertainty. "Perhaps you could say that." The next day, Obito and his teammates gathered at the designated meeting point. After assigning tasks to the group, Minato gave Obito a complicated look before hurriedly departing. Rin tilted her head in confusion. "Did you notice? Sensei looked so exhausted today." Obito smirked, resting his chin in his palm. "Oh? I thought Sensei seemed rather happy." Kakashi shot Obito a sidelong glance. It was almost certain that Minato-sensei's unusual behavior had something directly or indirectly to do with this idiot. As newly minted Chunin, Obito and Rin were limited to taking on D-rank missions. Unfortunately for Kakashi, as their teammate, he had no choice but to tag along. Another round of mind-numbing busywork, Obito sighed dramatically. Kakashi and Rin silently nodded in agreement. D-rank missions typically involve non-combat, low-risk activities. Tasks included finding lost pets, picking up trash, babysitting, conducting behavior surveys, and even helping to dig up sweet potatoes. "Let's just get today's task over with quickly," Kakashi suggested. "The sooner we're done, the sooner we can start training this afternoon." "Yosh!" Obito cheered enthusiastically. As the days turned into weeks, the team steadily grew stronger. Obito finally managed to master the shadow clone jutsu he'd been longing to learn. After training one evening, he returned home, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Let's give this a try," he muttered, forming the seals for the jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu. In a puff of smoke, an exact replica of Obito appeared. The two stared at each other, wide-eyed with curiosity. "All right, partner," Obito declared. "You handle the training for me." The clone lazily plopped onto the bed, shaking its head. "I refuse." They locked eyes in silence for a moment before Obito heaved a long sigh. "I should have seen that coming. If I hate training, why would my clone enjoy it?" Shaking his head, he dispelled the clone. "Well, so much for that plan." Peering outside, he noticed the sky was still bright. "Maybe I'll go out for a bit, but who should I visit?" Before he could decide, the system chimed in his head. Option 1, visit Guy, reward, White Snake Lady Skin 1, Option 2, visit Rin. Reward, Balenciaga High Stockings 1. Option 3, visit Shikayu. Reward, Chess Set 1. Option 4, visit Iam. Reward, Chakra Worm Eggs 100. Option 5, visit Kakashi. Reward, Sexy Technique. Huh. The options left Obito momentarily speechless. The bizarre rewards were one thing he could live with, a chess set or even chakra worm eggs. But why on earth would visiting Kakashi earn him the sexy technique? Could it be? Obito fell into deep thought. After a moment, he shook his head. "Nah, I'm just overthinking it. Let's eliminate options 1, 3, and 4. I'm not interested in bugs, and I don't feel like playing chess with Shikayu today. Rin's reward is tempting, but, nah, I don't want anyone else staring at her." He nodded decisively. "Looks like it's option 5. By the way, system, can I choose multiple options?" Obito asked hopefully. The system's voice was icy and unwavering. "Ding! May I switch hosts instead?" Obito clicked his tongue in defeat. Fine. Forget I asked." Once again, he summoned a shadow clone. "Alright, buddy, I'll take care of the multiple choice question. You handle preparing some fruit wine for Minato-sensei." The clone gave an enthusiastic thumbs up. "Yosh! Anything but training is fine by me." As Obito darted out the door, the clone grabbed a jar of fruit wine from the kitchen. "Last time, I overdid it," the clone mused, pulling 9 small pouches from a drawer. "This should be the perfect balance." Meanwhile, Obito raced to Kakashi's house, pounding on the door. "Who is it?" Kakashi opened the door, looking confused. "Obito? What are you doing here?" Obito grinned mischievously. "Nothing much, just thought I'd drop by." At that moment, the system chimed again. "Choice complete. Reward unlocked, sexy technique." Kakashi's suspicion deepened, but before he could respond, Obito's expression turned sly. "By the way, Kakashi, I just mastered a new jutsu. Want to see? It's super impressive." Kakashi's disinterest was palpable. "No, I..." The words died in his throat as his eyes widened in shock. In front of him, Obito had transformed into a stunning young woman with flowing black hair, dazzling star-like eyes, and an astonishingly alluring figure. Kakashi froze, dumbfounded. "Yes!" Obito celebrated inwardly. When designing the look, he had drawn inspiration from a collection of beauties from his previous life, combining them into one ultimate form. Kakashi, meanwhile, felt warmth trickling from his nose. Without a word, he grabbed Obito's arm and pulled him inside. "It's windy out here. Let's talk inside." Walt, Kakashi, hold on." The door slammed shut, and all that followed was silence. Chapter 32, The C-Rank Mission. The next day. "Stop it!" Obito woke up abruptly, his shout echoing in the quiet room. When he realized Kakashi wasn't beside him, he let out a sigh of relief. His body felt sore all over as he struggled to sit up in bed. "That Kakashi. He insisted I stay over last night," Obito muttered, getting dressed and heading out of the room. Just as he stepped out, he bumped into Kakashi, who was also just waking up. Kakashi, as calm as ever, spoke in his usual cold tone. "Let's go. We're going to be late." Obito huffed in irritation. "Late, huh? You sure know how to be indifferent after using me like that. Wasn't it you last night who—" Kakashi cut him off, visibly flustered. "Enough. Let's never speak of last night again. We'll let it stay buried forever." Obito nodded, surprisingly in agreement. "Fine by me. Let's just get going and start the mission." Throwing an arm around Kakashi's shoulder, Obito pushed open the door, only to find Rin standing there, frozen in place. The air between the three of them grew heavy, an awkward tension thickening. Kakashi inwardly cursed. When did Rin get here? Did she hear anything we just said? Damn it, what if she misunderstood? Meanwhile, Rin's thoughts had spiraled far off track. She couldn't help it, those words Obito and Kakashi exchanged were way too misleading. So that's why Kakashi-kun never shows interest in girls. Could it be that he and Obito? Obito's face contorted as he scrambled for an explanation. Rin! Fancy meeting you here. Why yeah. What a coincidence, Rin replied, her voice unsteady. Looks like we're about to be late. How about we walk and talk? Kakashi suggested, eager to escape the moment. Sure, let's do that, Rin answered hesitantly. And so, the three walked to their meeting point in complete silence. Kakashi knew Obito like Rin. Obito knew Rin admired Kakashi. But now, Rin suspected something was going on between Obito and Kakashi. The result? A perfect loop of awkward misunderstandings, with all three believing they were the third wheel. They could form three different ships just between themselves. At the western side of Konoha's training grounds, Minato looked at his three students and began, "Now that everyone's here, I'll explain today's mission." Normally, Minato would have noticed the odd atmosphere among his team, but today, he wasn't at his best either. His lower back ached faintly. After briefing the team, Minato quickly excused himself. "I'll be back shortly. You all can discuss the plan for now." The moment he left, Kakashi bolted. "We'll be heading out first." "I'll go too." Rin stammered and hurried away. Obito gritted his teeth and chased after her. "Rin, wait! I need to talk to you." Rin stopped and bit her lip nervously. Is he going to stake his claim? Is he about to tell me to stay away from Kakashi? But to her surprise, Obito's tone was a mix of exasperation and embarrassment as he explained. "You've got it all wrong. About last night. Kakashi made me stay over to demonstrate the jutsu over and over. I was so exhausted I crashed at his place." Rin's cheeks turned bright red. "Oh, so that's what happened. I didn't know Kakashi could be so demanding." Obito nodded vehemently. "Exactly." But then Rin tilted her head and asked innocently. "But Obito, how did you come up with such a technique?" Obito froze. "Oh no! Not this question. Let's finish the mission first," Obito stammered before bolting. Rin watched him leave, a small smile forming. "Obito, you're such a dummy." As days went by, Obito's plan of trading fruit wine for medicine started to wind down. With most of the supplies used up, he decided to take a break from the project. Partly because he wanted to save money for his future, and partly because he feared Minato's Sensei might actually collapse from exhaustion if this went on any longer. At the team's next meeting spot, Kakashi adjusted his forehead protector, his voice pensive. "Sensei's condition seems much better recently. During our last training sessions, he looked like he was barely managing to stay on his feet." Obito coughed awkwardly. Maybe you're just overthinking it. Sensei was probably just going easy on us." Kakashi shot him a skeptical look, but before he could press further, Rin raised her hand. "Shoo! Sensei's here." Minato appeared before them, looking radiant and full of energy. I have a mission for you today, Minato said, his tone brimming with enthusiasm. It's a C-rank mission. How about it? Are you up for it? Obito's eyes lit up as he pumped his fist. Of course! I've been waiting for a real mission. C-rank missions involve moderate risks, including tasks like small-scale combat, escorting, gathering intelligence, and capturing dangerous beasts. Kakashi's usually calm demeanor revealed a glimmer of excitement as well. What's the mission, since? Rin asked curiously. Minato smiled. This time, we'll need to leave Konoha. I'll explain as we go. The four of them left the village, heading south. As they traveled, Obito couldn't help but marvel at the sights. This is my first time leaving the village. Everything feels so new. Minato explained as they moved. Our mission is to gather intelligence at a black market. The village received reports of a possible sighting of a former Konoha special Chunin, Inisuk, near the area. A black market? Obito asked, intrigued. I didn't think such places would exist in the Land of Fire. Before Minato could answer, Kakashi spoke up. Black markets are difficult to eliminate entirely. Sometimes, it's better to let a few operate under surveillance. This way, their scale can be controlled, and valuable information can be obtained quickly. Obito nodded in understanding. Ah, I see. That's pretty smart. Minato glanced at Kakashi approvingly. Exactly. Our target this time is Inisuk. Here's his profile. He handed a scroll to Obito, who opened it and began reading. Pass it around, Minato said. We'll need to memorize it before we arrive. Chapter 33, A Sudden Target. Obito took the scroll and studied it carefully. The man named Inisuk had a refined appearance but a strong, robust physique. His temper was violent, and he was skilled with a pair of twin blades. While his taijutsu was on par with a jonin, his ninjutsu was mediocre, and his genjutsu skills were notably weak. After memorizing key details, Obito passed the scroll to Rin, who then handed it to Kakashi. Once Kakashi finished reading, he performed a fireball jutsu, incinerating the scroll. Rin and Obito exchanged puzzled glances. Kakashi explained calmly, destroying the scroll after memorizing mission details is basic ninja protocol. Though Kakashi said this with seriousness, Obito's mind wandered. He suddenly imagined Guy in a similar situation. Without the mission scroll, would Guy even be able to carry out the task? Guy, who am I supposed to assassinate again? Uchiha Kisame? Hashigaki Madara? Walt, what was my mission again? The thought was so ridiculous that Obito couldn't help but chuckle internally. The four of them kept moving, leaping through the forest with their hands behind their backs. When they were hungry, they each ate a military ration pill. When thirsty, they simply endured it better than needing a bathroom break later. After running for what felt like an eternity, they finally approached the black market. When Minato announced their arrival, the three younger ninjas let out a collective sigh of relief. Obito glanced around, squinting at the so-called black market. No matter how he looked, it seemed like an ordinary village. It just looks like a deserted settlement, he muttered. Without prior knowledge of its hidden nature, no one would associate this quiet village with an illegal marketplace. Remove your headbands. Once inside, make sure to conceal your identities, Minato instructed. The three nodded, tucking their headbands carefully into their clothes. Transformation Jutsu. With a flash, Minato transformed into a burly, menacing man with a scarred face. Following his lead, Obito, Rin, and Kakashi used the transformation jutsu to disguise themselves. It's worth noting that for successful disguises, it's best to base your transformation on something familiar or close to your actual traits. Otherwise, a sharp observer might easily see through the act. Unless, of course, you have protagonist-level plot armor. Then none of this matters, right, Naruto? The group entered the black market boldly. The guards at the entrance, dressed as ordinary villagers, gave them a glance but didn't stop them. These four looked too dangerous to be random intruders. Once inside, Minato spoke in a low voice, "You three, split up and gather information. I'll meet with the black market's leader." Since the black market prohibited fighting and his students were competent enough, he wasn't worried about their safety. The three nodded in agreement. Understood, Minato-sensei. They knew that this mission was more about gaining experience. Minato wasn't relying on them to uncover any vital intel. The critical parts of the mission would ultimately fall on him. After Minato left, the trio aimlessly wandered the streets of the black market. "What should we do next?" Obito asked. Kakashi thought for a moment before answering, "Let's try striking up conversations with people. See if we can gather any useful information, but be subtle. The black market is a web of hidden dangers. We don't want to alert anyone." Rin nodded enthusiastically. "Kakashi-kun, you're so knowledgeable." Obito rolled his eyes so hard they nearly popped out. "Humph." Spotting a burly man lounging nearby, the trio decided to approach him. "You look like a formidable warrior," Obito said with a friendly smile. "Which ninja village do you represent?" The middle-aged man didn't answer directly. Instead, he smiled slyly and asked, "And where are you three from?" The trio exchanged quick glances. "We're from Iwagakure," Obito said with convincing earnestness. "And you, my friend?" The man nodded in understanding before grinning mischievously. "Ah, I'm from Konohagakure." The trio. "Really? Are you trying to pull a fast one on us?" "Need some explosive tags?" the man offered, pulling back his cloak to reveal an assortment of tags plastered inside. "Top-notch Konoha quality. I'll give you a good deal since you seem like decent folks." Without a word, the three turned and walked away. "Hey, don't go! At least haggle a bit," the man called after them. After circling the relatively small black market, they'd found nothing of value. "Gathering intelligence is so hard," Obito complained. "Asterisk, if only my Sharingan were fully developed to 3 tomo, he muttered wistfully. "I could just scan the area and figure out everything at once." Rin nodded in agreement, then turned expectantly to Kakashi. "Kakashi, do you have any ideas?" Kakashi shook his head, clearly as stumped as the others. Suddenly, his gaze locked onto someone in the distance. After observing for a moment, he whispered, "Look over there. Doesn't that guy resemble our target?" Obito and Rin discreetly glanced in the direction he indicated but saw nothing unusual. "His appearance and physique don't match the description," Obito said doubtfully. "What makes you think he's the target, Kakashi?" "It's the twin blades," Kakashi explained with confidence. "They're almost identical to the ones described in the scroll. I'm 80% sure it's him." Obito squinted at the blades, still failing to see the connection. "They're just regular swords, right?" Just then, a translucent screen appeared in front of Obito's eyes. Option 1, report the information to Minato immediately. Reward, 0.03 chakra points. Option 2, take the initiative and find a way to subdue Inisuk. Reward, clone great explosion. Obito's heart raced. A system choice? So it really is Inisuk. What should we do? Should we inform Minato-sensei? Rin asked nervously, clutching her hands together. "No time for that," Kakashi replied, his voice steady. "By the time we find Minato-sensei, the target might already be gone." Obito nodded. "We need to act now." In his mind, he repeatedly selected the second option. 222,222. Kakashi frowned in thought, quickly analyzing different plans, only to dismiss them one by one. "We can't fight openly here. The black market strictly prohibits violence. We'd need to take him out in a secluded area with a single decisive strike, no small feat against someone skilled in taijutsu." Obito chewed on his thumbnail, deep in thought. After a moment, his eyes lit up. "I have an idea. We could do this, and then that." Rin listened with wide eyes. "Isn't that a bit risky, Obito?" Kakashi glanced at the target, who appeared ready to leave. With a decisive nod, he said, "We don't have time. Let's go with Obito's plan. Rin, you find Minato Sensei. Obito and I will handle this." Rin hesitated briefly before agreeing. "Alright, but you two must be careful." Obito grinned cheekily. "Don't worry, Rin. We got this." With that, the team split up. Obito and Kakashi circled around from different directions, closing in on the target. Chapter 34, Subduing Inisuk. On the main street, Inisuk had just finished gathering supplies for the month. Suddenly, he felt a faint sense of unease and turned around sharply. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a shadow clumsily ducking behind a corner. It was almost laughable. Another spy, huh? Inisuk thought, sneering inwardly. Which faction sent this one this time? For the past month, such encounters had become commonplace. Spies tolling him, trying to gather information. But none of them were competent enough to evade detection, let alone survive his blade. This one didn't seem any better. Pretending to browse at a nearby stall, Inisuk kept a careful watch out of the corner of his eye. Then he saw her. A golden-haired woman, her features delicate and pure, yet her figure dangerously enticing. Beautiful. His throat moved involuntarily as he swallowed hard. A lascivious grin spread across his face. Such a stunner sent to tell me? Guess I'll take the bolt. Maybe have some fun before getting rid of her, he muttered under his breath. The stall owner, noticing Inisuk loitering without buying, barked in annoyance. "Hey, kid! You buying or just wasting my time?" Inisuk cast the man a cold glare but said nothing, turning and leaving the stall. He purposefully chose narrow side alleys, weaving through the city like a predator leading its prey into a trap. The golden-haired woman followed, her movements awkward but persistent. When she finally stepped into the alley, she froze. A dead end. And Inisuk was gone. Suddenly, something hard pressed against her back. Her expression stiffened as she turned her head slowly, only to meet Inisuk's menacing gaze. "Who sent you?" he asked casually, one hand playing with the fabric of her clothing. The woman stammered, unable to form coherent words. Inisuk smirked, tightening his grip slightly. "No answer? That's fine. After we have a little fun, I'm sure you'll be more cooperative." The woman's eye twitched. Her mind screamed in frustration. "Fun, my ass. I've got something that'll scare you stiff." She lifted her face to meet his gaze, her eyes instantly turning blood-red, tomo spinning in their depths. "Sharingan?" Inisuk's expression shifted. The woman smirked, her voice dropping an octave deep and masculine. "Well, little man, still interested in playing with me?" Inisuk's mind blanked momentarily, ensnared by the Genjutsu. His training as a special Jonin had made him strong, but illusions were not his forte. "Now, Kakashi. Move," the woman barked in a low tone. Before Inisuk could break free, a shadow darted behind him. With a solid thud, a sheath struck the back of his head. He crumpled to the ground, out cold. As he lay unconscious, his transformation technique unraveled, revealing his true face. The golden-haired woman no, Obito clicked his tongue and shook his head. Youngsters these days. Always blinded by lust. And look where it got him. Kakashi glanced at Obito with a grimace. "Can you please change back now? This form is unsettling." Obito snorted. "Fine, fine." He reverted to his usual self with a puff of smoke. At the same time, a system prompt echoed in his mind. Selection complete. Reward obtained, Clone Great Explosion. Clone Great Explosion, your shadow clone self-destructs when embarrassed, releasing a massive chakra shockwave. Obito stared blankly at the description, his eye twitching. What the hell is this cursed skill? Not long after, two more figures arrived, Minato and Rin. Minato stared at the unconscious Inisuk, stunned. "I thought this was supposed to be a simple mission for experience." How did you kids manage to subdue a special Jonin? Obito grinned sheepishly. Teamwork, Sensei. Minato sighed, choosing not to press further. Alright, let's leave before we draw attention. Stick close, everyone. With a flick of his wrist, he activated his Flying Thunder God technique, teleporting the group including their captive far from the black market. Kakashi, wide-eyed, marveled at the technique. Sensei, was that a space-time ninjutsu? Minato nodded, smiling gently. Yes. It's a forbidden technique developed by the second Hokage. With it, one can teleport instantaneously to any marked location. He retrieved a kanat marked with the formula, showing it to his students. Kakashi's eyes sparkled with determination. I must learn this. Combined with my kenjutsu, it'll make me unstoppable. Rin watched in awe, while Obito muttered under his breath. Once I master Kamui, who needs Flying Thunder God? Still, he thought, no harm in picking it up for fun. As they headed back to Konohakure, Minato tested them with a question. What precautions should we take to prevent Inisuk from regaining consciousness and retaliating? Obito's hand shot up enthusiastically. Break his arms and legs, then slap on 7 or 8 seals for good measure. Chapter 35, Obito who remains true to his original intentions. Minato never expected this. The seemingly naive Obito turned out to be so ruthless. Yes, we can apply a sealing technique to the enemy to restrict their chakra. As he spoke, Minato directed a few strands of chakra through his fingers and slammed his palm against Inisuk's abdomen. Inisuk groaned, his eyes slowly fluttering open. Namake's Minato! The moment he recognized Minato's face, he abandoned any thoughts of resistance. As a fellow Konoha ninja, Inisuk knew just how terrifying this man was. With a bitter smile, he muttered, I never thought the village would value me enough to send even you. Obito, meanwhile, shook his head and wagged his finger in front of Inisuk's face. No! 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 Don't overestimate yourself. You were caught by 3 freshly graduated academy students. Got that? A vein throbbed on Inisuk's forehead. He wanted nothing more than to strangle the smug brat in front of him. Seeing Inisuk's irritated expression, Obito crossed his arms and shot back. What are you glaring at? Keep staring, and I'll hit you? Sigh. Perhaps everyone had grown used to Obito's antics. Like Rin and Kakashi, Minato merely stood to the side, letting out a silent sigh. On the way back to the village, Obito and Inisuk bickered endlessly. As a self-proclaimed troll pianist in his previous life, Obito had roasted countless opponents into submission. This time, he managed to verbally silence even the infamously despicable Inisuk. Minato, watching from the sidelines, could only marvel at the scene. His impression of his student had reached an entirely new level. Kakashi, Rin, and Obito explained the entire capture to Minato during their walk. When Minato learned that the elaborate plan had been devised by Obito, he couldn't help but glance at the boy in surprise. He had never expected such a clever strategy from Obito, one that broke conventional patterns by exposing their location to lower the enemy's guard, then exploiting the target's weaknesses to create opportunities for his team. Though the final touch, a rather shameless seduction tactic, did fit Obito's unique style. Minato couldn't help but think of Obito as an unpolished gem, one that he needed to carefully shape and refine before the boy veered too far off track. The 5 returned to the village, and Minato addressed his team. I have some matters to handle, so there's no training today. Go home and get some rest. The 3 nodded obediently. Yes, Minato-sensei. After Minato departed with Inisuk in tow, Rin turned her bright eyes toward the 2 boys beside her. Kakashi, Obito, what are your plans for later? Before Kakashi could reply that he wanted to train, Obito cut in enthusiastically. Why don't we all go to Kakashi's house for dinner? This guy's cooking is amazing. Hearing this, Rin's eyes lit up with excitement as she turned expectantly to Kakashi. Is that okay, Kakashi? Kakashi, slightly annoyed, gave Obito a subtle nudge before reluctantly agreeing. Of course, that's fine. Rin clasped her hands together, practically glowing with anticipation. Yay! I can't wait. Obito, grinning, slung one arm around Kakashi's shoulder and took Rin's hand with the other. Alright, let's get moving. We can chat more when we get to his place. After this long mission, I feel like I'm about to collapse. Meanwhile, Minato delivered Inisuk to the ANBU before heading toward the Hokage's office. After being announced by the ANBU guards, he entered and was greeted warmly by the third Hokage. Ah, Minato! Come in and have a seat. Minato gave a polite smile and sat down. Thank you, Lord Third. The third Hokage took a puff from his pipe, exhaling slowly before speaking. I hear you managed to capture a rogue ninja while gathering intelligence with your students. Truly remarkable, as expected of you. Minato scratched the back of his head, looking slightly embarrassed. Actually, Lord Third, I'm here to report the details of the mission. Oh? The third Hokage's eyes gleamed with curiosity as he straightened in his chair. Minato proceeded to recount the mission in detail, from start to finish, emphasizing the students' efforts. Star. So, in truth, it was my students who captured Inisuk. I didn't contribute much. Though slightly awkward, Minato relayed the entire story honestly. The third Hokage listened intently, his interest especially piqued when the sexy technique was mentioned. He made a mental note to investigate this peculiar technique further, perhaps using his telescope technique to observe Obito's training in the future. Unaware of the Hokage's thoughts, Minato continued, his voice filled with pride. They are a talented group. I believe Kakashi and Obito, in particular, will become invaluable pillars of the village in the future. The third Hokage nodded approvingly. I'm glad to hear that. Minato, you must nurture their potential carefully. Of course, Lord Third, Minato replied solemnly. The third Hokage then inquired about Kakashi's recent demeanor, and Minato assured him that the boy seemed to have moved past his sorrow, treating Obito and Rin as true companions. Satisfied, the Hokage took another drag from his pipe. Good. Very good. Since their original mission was classified as reconnaissance, the team's monetary reward was modest despite their accomplishments. However, Minato submitted a special request to the Hokage's office, ensuring that each student received a substantial bonus. Thank you, Minato-sensei. Obito exclaimed happily after receiving his reward. Without wasting a moment, he dashed toward the nearest shop. Where does a young man go first with newfound wealth? Naturally, the man's fueling station. Obito cheerfully skipped into the pharmacy, intent on buying some tonics to thank Minato-sensei. I'm just giving back to my sensei, he muttered to himself with a grin. Well, well. The sultry voice of a woman rang out from behind the counter. Recognizing Obito, she smirked as her captivating almond-shaped eyes narrowed. If it isn't the little boy who couldn't stop staring at my chest last time. What brings you back today? Obito felt wronged, pouting in protest. Hey, don't say things like that. I wasn't staring at your chest. Not just your chest, anyway, Obito thought silently. I also looked at your legs and hips. The woman rolled her eyes. My name isn't Hei, call me Yukine-san, she teased, tilting her head playfully. Chapter 36, Obito and Shui. It seemed the woman had read Obito's thoughts perfectly. With her large, expressive eyes curving in amusement, she spoke in a teasing tone. Call me Sister Yuki, and I might just give you a discount. To her surprise, Obito's expression remained indifferent, utterly unmoved. Discount or no discount, I don't really care, he replied flatly. What I want to know is how did Sister Yuki end up with such a beautiful name? Yuki. Alright, maybe she had overestimated this brat. To be fair, Obito did have some thoughts about her name. Yuki was a title typically reserved for women of noble status. For a mere pharmacy owner to claim it wasn't that a bit much? Still, he kept that opinion to himself. After all, he was still hoping for that discount. Yuki leaned against the counter, her smile never faltering. So, little brother, what are you buying this time? Same medicine as last time, double the amount? Obito answered without hesitation. Yuki's full lips parted slightly, her face which usually carried a calm allure now looked surprisingly dazed. After a moment, she recovered and asked in a puzzled tone. You already used up what I gave you last time? Obito nodded matter-of-factly, utterly oblivious to her confusion. Yuki hesitated before carefully asking. Your teacher is still alive, right? Obito looked at her like she'd asked the most obvious question in the world. Yeah. Why wouldn't he be? Letting out a visible sigh of relief, Yuki patted her chest. All right, I'll go get your medicine. But listen carefully, don't misuse it. It could cause serious problems. Obito gave her a knowing look. Don't worry, Sister Yuki. I understand what you mean. Moments later, Yuki returned with 2 medicine pouches. She set them on the counter, then glanced at Obito. Little brother, the shop's quiet right now. How about you keep me company for a bit? Obito pointed to the ninja headband tied around his forehead. Sister Yuki, I'm a distinguished ninja, worth thousands of ryo every minute. Where would I find the time to sit and chat? Yuki tapped her slender fingers against the counter, speaking in an offhand tone. 70% off. Obito dragged a stool over from the side and sat down beside her without hesitation. Sister Yuki, what would you like to talk about? Yuki's lips curved into a mocking smile. Distinguished ninja, how come you suddenly have time for a humble girl like me? Obito gave a sheepish but polite smile. Enough, woman. Let's not overdo it, alright? If it weren't for your good looks, I wouldn't even care about this little discount. So, kid, what's your name? Yuki asked casually. I'm Uchiha Obito. 1 month later. At Obito's house. A voice called out from the kitchen. Obito, where's all the fruit wine I made? His grandmother asked curiously. Obito quickly stepped into the kitchen, rubbing the back of his head. I gave it to my teacher. His grandmother's voice immediately rose by 3 octaves. All of it? Obito nodded guiltily. Well, your wine is just so good, Grandma. My teacher tried it once and loved it, so I've been bringing him a jar every now and then. His grandmother sighed, a mix of exasperation and indulgence on her face. Fine, fine. It's not worth much anyway. If your teacher likes it, I'll make more. She paused before adding. Your Uncle Kawa is coming over for lunch with Shizzle later. I was planning to send him back with 2 jars to try, but I guess I'll have to make another batch. Though her words sounded reproachful, her eyes were full of affection. Noticing Obito's remorseful expression, she reached out to ruffle his hair. All right, don't feel bad. Grandma's not mad. Today's Shirsue's birthday, she reminded him. Did you prepare a gift for him? Of course, Grandma. How could I forget my cousin's birthday? Obito replied confidently. His grandmother gave him a warm smile and patted his head again. Good. Now run along and play, I need to get started on lunch. Let me help you, Grandma. I've got nothing else to do, Obito offered with a grin. His grandmother chuckled and nodded, pleased. Noon. Uchiha Kawa arrived with little Shirsue in tow, and the family enjoyed a hearty lunch together. Afterward, while Kawama helped clean up, Obito and Shizzle sat chatting in the living room. Obito handed Shizzle a carefully wrapped ninja toolkit. Happy birthday, Shizzle. This is your brother's gift to you. Thank you, Obito. Shizzle said brightly, opening the package to reveal a set of finely crafted tools. Obito grinned. Well? Do you like it? I love it. Shizzle nodded enthusiastically. Good. Obito inwardly sighed in relief. After buying medicine for Minato Sensei, he'd spent the re of his money on this gift. But hey, spoiling my little cousin is in my Uchiha DNA, right? Shizzle carefully put away the tools before asking curiously. Obito, what's it like being a real ninja? Obito scratched his head. What's it like? Mostly doing chores and the occasional real mission, not exactly glamorous. Still, saying that out loud felt like admitting defeat. With a dramatic pause, Obito clasped his hands behind his back and put on a solemn expression. There are some things I can't tell you, Shizzle. Village secrets and all. But, he added, his tone growing serious, there's one thing I can share, something you must remember. Shizzle's eyes widened in anticipation, hanging on every word. Obito let the tension build for a few moments before declaring. With great power comes great responsibility. Shizzle tilted his head, pondering the weighty statement. To him, it was profound wisdom. His respect for his cousin soared. As they walked home, Shizzle turned to his father. Dad, what kind of person do you think Obito is? Kawa ruffled Shizzler's hair, smiling. Your cousin? He's the most talented kid I've ever seen. But his personality is truly something else. Kawama decided to keep that part to himself. Why do you ask? Shizzle nodded thoughtfully. No reason. Chapter 37, I don't want to be a Chunin. That afternoon, after classes at the Ninja Academy had ended, Shizzle stopped his teacher with a curious look in his eyes. Teacher Kasuke, what kind of person do you think my cousin 15? He asked expectantly. Kasuke didn't hesitate. Obito? He's a unique child, truly exceptional. Kasuke could still vividly recall the first day of school. The moment Obito saw him, the boy had confidently declared, Teacher, you don't need to bother assigning me a seat. I can get along with anyone, no matter where I sit. At the time, Kasuke had been young and headstrong. He didn't believe a word of it and deliberately moved Obito's seat multiple times, trying to challenge his claim. Eventually, he placed Obito next to the quietest, most reserved student in the class, thinking, let's see him chat now. To his surprise, Kasuke later realized he had been the fool all along. That quiet student, Nagano, had somehow become just as talkative as Obito. Even now, Kasuke wasn't sure what had gone wrong. Was it Obito's influence? My own lack of discipline? Or was Nagano rebellious all along? In any case, from that point onward, Kasuke decided to just let Obito be. Some students are like old ladies climbing stairs, you simply have to help them along. Obito was the most peculiar student Kasuke had ever taught. Still, in front of Shursui, Kasuke chose his words carefully. After all, Obito had eventually brought honor to his name. That's amazing, Shizzle murmured after hearing Kasuke's assessment. He felt like he understood his cousin a bit better. Obito wasn't just talented, he had a charm that left an impression on everyone he met. Determined, Shursui made a silent vow. I'll follow in cousin Obito's footsteps and become an excellent ninja like him. The warm sunlight bathed the earth, bright and gentle, like a big sister's soft hand brushing across one's skin. Obito leaned lazily on the bridge's railing, basking in the sun. What's the deal with Minato-sensei? He called us here early, but now he's late himself, Obito grumbled. Kakashi, standing beside him with his usual bored expression, shot him a side glance. Obito, you're really one to talk. Obito opened his mouth to retort but found himself at a loss for words. Instead, he glared at Kakashi. Kakashi! Kakashi returned the glare. Obito! Kakashi! Obito! Rin chuckled helplessly and stepped between the two, placing a hand on each of their heads. All right, that's enough, you two? As they squabbled, a figure descended from above. It was Minato. Landing gracefully, he greeted them with a smile. Sorry to keep you waiting, I see everyone's here. Obito walked up, curiosity shining in his eyes. Sensei, why'd you jump down from so high up? Do we have a new mission today? Minato hesitated, momentarily thrown off by Obito's question. No mission today. I have something else to announce. Reaching into his pouch, Minato pulled out 3 pieces of paper. What's that, sensei? Rin asked, her big eyes blinking in curiosity. Minato handed the papers to the trio. These are consent forms for the Chunin exams. I've recommended you all for promotion. Chunin, huh? Obito accepted the form reluctantly, his enthusiasm noticeably lacking. Minato, puzzled by Obito's reaction, had imagined him leaping with joy, maybe even hugging him and shouting something dramatic like, "I love you, sensei." Instead, Obito looked like he couldn't care less. Minato scratched his head in confusion. Obito, you don't seem too excited. Are you not interested in becoming a Chunin? Both Kakashi and Rin turned to Obito in surprise. His behavior was indeed out of character. Under their stares, Obito hesitated for a moment before nodding. That's right, sensei. I don't want to take the Chunin exams. If I stay a Genin, Obito thought to himself, maybe I can help our team avoid the tragedy of the Canopy Bridge mission. Besides, being a Genin in Konoha is pretty great. Why rush to become a Chunin? But the system had other plans. With a soft ding, a new set of options appeared before him. Option 1, agree to take the Chunin exams and wow everyone in the final round. Reward, Hashirama Cell's enhancement. Option 2, agree to take the Chunin exams and pass with average performance. Reward, Fire Release, Fire Dragon Bullet. Option 3, refuse to take the Chunin exams and remain a proud Genin. Reward, Genin Aura. Genin Aura, when encountering an enemy, shout, "I'm just a Genin," to lower their sanity by point. What the? Obito scanned the options and found that all the rewards were decent. Still, option 1 was clearly the most tempting, though it seemed the hardest to achieve. Well, it looks like skipping the exams isn't an option after all. Without hesitation, he mentally selected option 1. Obito, Minato prompted again, noticing the boy lost in thought. Can you tell me why you don't want to take the Chunin exams? Snapping out of it, Obito grinned sheepishly. Because I'm afraid I'll shine too brightly in the exams and make everyone jealous. Minato. Rin. Kakashi sighed and punched Obito in the arm. Sensei, just ignore him. Please continue. Minato exhaled, his expression complicated, and nodded. Kakashi, even though you're already a Chunin, this exam includes a group competition segment. So I'll need you to join Obito and Rin for the test. Kakashi nodded calmly. No problem, sensei. Satisfied, Minato clapped Kakashi on the shoulder. Good. Now let me explain the details of the Chunin exams. Obito, Rin, make sure you listen carefully. The first stage is a written test. On the day of the written test, Obito confidently handed in his paper early and strolled out of the exam room. Pfft, too easy. Anyone with a hand could pass this, he boasted loudly at the door. His comment earned him glares from many test takers still inside. What's that supposed to mean? Are you saying we're all incompetent? Rin quickly dragged Obito away from the scene, laughing softly. So, how do you think you did, Obito? Patting his chest, Obito grinned. Piece of cake. For past life Obito, the written exam might have been the hardest part. But now? A breeze. Or so he thought. When the results were posted, Obito stared at the board, wiping cold sweat from his brow. Seriously? I barely passed by the skin of my teeth? Beside him, Kakashi crossed his arms and rolled his eyes. Idiot. Obito huffed, glaring at Kakashi. So what if you scored first? Big deal, Kakashi. Obito. Kakashi. Obito. Chapter 38, the second round of the Chunin exams. The second round of the Chunin exams was a preliminary team battle. In the lush forest, sunlight filtered through overlapping branches, creating dappled patterns on the shaded ground below. In a relatively spacious clearing, STX small figures stood in two opposing groups. Shikayu sighed as he glanced at the three figures across from them. Talk about bad luck running into the three of you troublemakers. Kakashi, Rin, and Obito, the team of three that could dominate just about anyone in their year. Obito grinned and chuckled. Don't worry, Shikayu. I'll go easy on you. Nagano scoffed, clearly annoyed with Shikayu's attitude. Asterisk Shikayu, why are you giving them so much credit and putting us down? He crossed his arms and shot a determined look at the rest of his team. As long as the three of us work together, I refuse to believe we can't beat them. Right, Ryoko? Nagano paused awkwardly, racking his brain before finally recalling Ryoko's name. Ryoko nodded timidly. Nagano-san is right. Even if Kakashi-kun is as strong as a Jonin, we still have a chance to win if we work together. Nagano. After the brief exchange, their examiner waved a hand, signaling the start of the match. Begin! Rin and Ryoko immediately retreated. Both were support-oriented ninjas, their primary role being to distract and disrupt the enemy. Whoosh! 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 A flurry of shurikens sliced through the air. The two launched a coordinated volley to initiate the battle. Clang, clang, clang. The shuriken clashed midair before falling to the ground. Meanwhile, Obito and Kakashi, each wielding a short sword, charged forward, dodging the stray shuriken as they closed in. Nagano, unwilling to be left behind, gripped his kunai and lunged toward Obito. Hey, don't rush in recklessly. Shikayu called out in frustration. They were already at a slight disadvantage in terms of strength. Playing it safe was their best option. That idiot! A glint of red appeared in Obito's eyes. Nagano froze mid-charge, his entire body stiffening like a statue. Not good, it's a Jinjutsu. Shikayu shouted, his voice tense. Seizing the moment, Kakashi dashed forward, his blade gleaming as it arced toward Nagano. But Shikayu's reaction was lightning fast. From the ground beneath him, a black shadow extended, splitting into tendrils that snared Nagano's shadow. Something incredible happened. Under Shikayu's control, Nagano moved like a puppet on strings, perfectly mimicking the movements of his own shadow. In a seemingly impossible maneuver, Nagano twisted his body and narrowly dodged Kakashi's blade. Shadow imitation jutsu. Obito clicked his tongue and slammed his foot down, leaping into the air as he drew his sword. Slash! The blade came down with blinding speed, leaving Shikayu no time to think. Shikayu cried, hurriedly releasing Nagano from his jutsu and redirecting his shadow to entangle Obito, halting his advance. That was close. Shikayu muttered, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. However, using the shadow imitation jutsu for just that brief moment had already consumed a quarter of his chakra. Luckily, Nagano snapped out of the Jinjutsu. Kakashi's blade once again came swinging toward Nagano, who quickly jumped back, slapped his stomach, and took a deep breath. Wind release, Nagano wave. He exhaled a compressed gust of wind chakra, sending a fierce blast hurtling toward Kakashi. Hearing the sharp whistling of the wind, Kakashi halted his charge, digging his toes into the ground to stop instantly. Obito also managed to break free from the shadow's grip, retreating to regroup with Kakashi. Thus, the first exchange came to an end. Obito's team remained unscathed, while Shikayu's team had already expended considerable energy. Obito couldn't help but laugh. Nagano, I gotta say, your jutsu names are pretty unique. Nagano frowned. This is a family technique passed down through the clan. It's just a coincidence that it shares a name. He turned to Shikayu, a hint of guilt on his face. Sorry, I got too carried away earlier. That's on me. Shikayu gave a reassuring smile and shook his head. It's fine. Let's try again. But Obito wasn't about to give them a chance to regroup. Forming a seal, he turned and spat out massive fireball. Fire release, great fireball jutsu. The blazing heat scorched the air, and a faint sizzling sound followed as tiny black specks fell to the ground. Obito grinned. Hey, Ryoko, sneaky tactics like that are pretty underhanded, don't you think? Ryoko's timid voice came from the trees. Sorry, Obito-kun, but I really want to pass this test. Obito waved it off casually. Haha, no worries. Everyone's just doing their best. With that, he dashed through the forest, weaving through the shadows as he closed the distance again. Kakashi mirrored his movements, disappearing and reappearing in the dense foliage, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Shikaya stayed vigilant, shadows called around his feet like poised serpents. Nagano stood in front of him, acting as his shield. Obito narrowed his eyes, analyzing the battlefield. Shikaya's shadow imitation technique was especially effective in the shaded forest, where overlapping shadows doubled his range. Charging in recklessly would only result in getting trapped, turning the fight into a battle of attrition. Maybe a distraction with shadow clones could work? But would such a trick be enough to deceive Ryoko's sensory abilities? Obito glanced at Kakashi, who met his gaze. In that split second, they reached an unspoken understanding. Let's go for it. From Shikaya's perspective, Obito and Kakashi surged forward again, their movements synchronized as they crossed paths. Shikaya frowned, sensing something was off. But there was no time to overthink. Shadows lashed out like tendrils, and Nagano charged ahead with a battle cry. Nagano Barrage! Ryoko's panicked voice rang out. Be careful, it's their shadow clones. Shadow clones? Wait, Obito actually mastered that jutsu? Nagano's first thought was disbelief. Moments later, two more figures emerged from the trees, another Kakashi and Obito. Ryoko appeared as well, trying to intercept one of them, but Rin quickly blocked her path with a kunai. Sorry, Ryoko. I can't let you through. Shikaya hesitated for just a moment, his shadows faltering. That brief pause was all it took. The four figures encircled Shikaya's team. Ah! Shikaya let out a resigned sigh. If his guess was right. Boom! Nagano was sent flying by a solid blow. Shikaya sighed again, raising his hands in surrender. We concede. Kakashi's blade stopped just short of him before the cold-eyed boy sheathed it. Great job! Rin cheered, pumping her fists in excitement. But noticing Ryoko's downcast expression, she quickly tempered her enthusiasm and began consoling her. Nagano picked himself up off the ground, muttering to himself in confusion. Wait a second. Weren't those two supposed to be shadow clones? Then how? Shikaya rubbed his temples and explained. We were tricked. The first two weren't both clones after all. Chapter 39, Individual Combat Round. Nagano stared blankly at Shikaya, his expression practically screaming. What the hell are you babbling about? Shikaya let out an awkward chuckle before patiently explaining. Obito and his team must have realized that within 100 paces, additional shadow clones can't escape Ryoko's sensory detection. So, they created a diversion, hiding their real bodies among the clones and appearing in two waves to confuse us. If we hesitated for even a moment or misjudged our target, they'd close the gap and launch a surprise attack. One in the light, one in the dark, one real, one fake. In the face of overwhelming strength, such a strategy was almost foolproof. 0.0. Nagano thought to himself, why would I hesitate? Can't I just charge in and smash them? Besides, who has time to think through all that in 1 or 2 seconds? Still, saying that out loud would make him seem foolish. So, Nagano pretended to understand, nodding as if enlightenment had struck. Then, with newfound energy, he glared at Obito, shouting, Obito, you coward! Afraid to face me head-on, huh? Obito chuckled and tapped his forehead. Hey, I suggest you start using this during battles. Rin gently tugged at Obito's sleeve, speaking softly, all right, Obito-kun, that's enough. Seeing Obito go silent, Nagano decided not to provoke him further. Instead, he turned to Shirkei and spoke with genuine admiration. Pineapple Head, you've got one sharp brain. I, Nagano, am impressed. Shikaya scratched his head, a bit embarrassed. Haha, it's nothing, really. Nagano's sudden humility left him a little flustered. At that moment, the proctor overseeing the exam leisurely strolled over and announced Obito's team as the victors. Thus, Obito's team passed the second round of the Chunin exams. The third round of the exams was the most critical, individual combat matches. A test that would assess each participant's personal strength. This round followed an elimination format, but victory didn't guarantee advancement. The proctors evaluated the candidates' performance in battle to determine their eligibility to become Chunin. The venue for this stage was Kanagakure's indoor training arena. The candidates stood in a loose line around the massive arena platform, each awaiting their turn. Nagano, standing among the group, waved his fist toward Obito in the distance. "Obito, you better not run into me, or else. Or else you'll be on your knees, begging me not to eliminate you." Nagano thought smugly. Obito, however, ignored him completely, silently ridiculing him in his mind. This guy lucked out in the group revival matches, and now he's acting all high and mighty again. For reference, in the anime, eliminated groups from the second round sometimes have candidates participate in the third round. On the second floor of the training arena, high-ranking ninjas from various nations were seated, watching the proceedings unfold below. From their elevated vantage point, every detail of the matches was visible. After all, the Chunin exams weren't just about assessing ninja, it was a battleground for inter-village diplomacy and power plays. With tensions rising between the villages, the atmosphere was becoming increasingly charged. These Konoha weaklings are in for a rude awakening. With their skills, they better hope the wind doesn't knock them over. Throughout the arena, whispers and taunts echoed. Some even began transmitting updates to their allies through secret communication techniques. Silence! Hiruzen Sarutobi's commanding voice rang out, enhanced by chakra from his diaphragm. His presence alone silenced the chaotic chatter, forcing everyone to obey. Under the third Hokage's stern gaze, the proctor stepped onto the platform and began explaining the rules of the round. "Whoa, the proctor's a total babe," Obito muttered to himself, clearly bored but still managing to ogle the examiner. After explaining the rules, the proctor announced the first match. First group, Nagano vs. Haruhi Masami. Nagano strutted confidently onto the platform, cracking his knuckles and loosening his shoulders. "Hey, Sparrow, don't embarrass us out there," Obito hollered from below. Nagano froze briefly, then scoffed, "TCH, as if I'd need your encouragement." Ryoko chimed in, "Go get him, Nagano." As they cheered, Nagano's opponent stepped onto the platform. Hori Masami, a ninja from Amagakure, appeared to be around 30 years old. His muscular build and tattered outfit gave him a rugged, intimidating air. At his waist hung a long drawn blade. Sixing up Nagano, Hori sneered, a wicked grin spreading across his face as if victory was already his. Nagano glanced at Hort, then scoffed, nodding his head arrogantly. 30 years old and still not a Chunin? Seriously, old man? Horty's face darkened with rage. "You little brat. I'm not 30, I'm 13. Obito blinked in astonishment from below. "Bro! With all those wrinkles, are you sure?" Nagano smirked and crossed his arms. 13? You're barely half my size, kid. Get in line, Junter." Horty cracked his knuckles, the sound echoing like snapping twigs. "You mouthy little punk. I'm gonna break a few of your bones and teach you some respect." Nagano raised an eyebrow mockingly. "Do you even know who my uncle is?" Horty hesitated, warily asking, "Your uncle? Who is he?" Nagano grinned smugly. "The head of Konoha's hospital. Even if I break your bones, you will have to wait in line for treatment." Hort, 777. "You little, are you messing with me?" Nagano chuckled. "Oh, you're quicker than I thought." "Enough!" The proctor's stem voice interrupted them. "Both candidates, begin your match immediately, or you'll be disqualified." Reluctantly, Horty drew his sword and charged at Nagano, yelling in frustration. Nagano, meanwhile, smirked, his eyes gleaming with excitement. The fight began in earnest, their techniques clashing in an intense back and forth. Watching from below, Obito couldn't help but laugh. You guys are so bad. Don't you know how to string together a combo after landing a hit? Absolute rookless. Chapter 40, The Battle Begins. The crowd beneath the stage could see it clearly. Masami Hori, now emotionally charged, was gradually falling into Nagano's rhythm. Gasping for breath, Masami lunged forward, thrusting his blade toward Nagano. Unfazed, Nagano calmly raised the kunai in his hand, sidestepping as he intercepted the attack. Slash. Deflecting Masami's sword, Nagano swiftly lifted his other hand and delivered a solid punch. Thud! The punch landed squarely on Masami's face, sending him flying backward. Seizing the advantage, Nagano rushed forward. Taijutsu, Nagano Barrage. Nagano's fists rained down like a storm on Masami's body, each blow precise and unrelenting. As he attacked, Nagano roared, his voice filled with fury. Die, Obito! From the sidelines, Obito muttered under his breath. Seriously? How much of this is personal vendetta? The proctor, a graceful young woman, sashayed onto the stage and announced the results of the first match. The match is over. The winner of the first round, Nagano. Die, Obito! Hey, contestant, stop hitting him. It's over, stop it already. Nagano and Masami were carried off the stage together, signaling the end of the first round. With a helpless sigh, the proctor drew lots for the second match. Second round, Nara Shikayu vs. Marco. Marco, a ninja from Takigakure, stepped forward, his short curly hair making his head look like a pineapple. PM! In the audience, Obito burst into laughter. Pineapple versus pineapple? This is going to be fun. Shikayu and Marco exchanged no words. As soon as the match began, Shuriken zipped through the air in a flurry. The distance between them closed rapidly, and Marco unsheathed a katana, opting for close combat. The blade flashed with deadly precision, forcing Shikayu to retreat. Skill-wise, Shikayu seemed at a slight disadvantage. However, he soon demonstrated the Nara clan's brilliance in battlefield control. Shikayu's deft movements left the crowd in awe. Wow, look at that footwork! Obito exclaimed enviously. Shikayu's got some serious moves. Might Guy, standing nearby, shook his head. Obito, you've got it wrong. With all our training, our core strength is definitely better than his. Rin tilted her head in curiosity. Core strength? What's that about? Her question drew the attention of Kakashi, Ryoko, and the others. With a proud grin, Guy started explaining. Core strength is MMPH. Before he could finish, Obito clamped a hand over Guy's mouth, his expression uneasy. Nothing. Nothing at all. Look, Shikayu's about to win. The group's focus returned to the stage just in time to see Marco charging at Shikayu near the edge of the platform. Shikayu, with his back to the edge, waited for the perfect moment. Now! He spun abruptly, dashing to the side as his shadow extended like a spider's web, ensnaring Marco's. The shadow imitation technique took hold, and Marco, carried by his own momentum, stumbled off the stage. From the audience, the third Hokage chuckled as he sipped his tea. Brilliant! As expected from Nara. The proctor returned to the stage, raising her hand. The second match is over. Winner, Nara Shikayu. Marco walked away dejectedly, while Shikayu casually descended the stage, hands behind his head. In the meantime, the proctor had already drawn the names for the third match. Third match, Hatake Kakashi vs. Shinichi Aoyama. Kakashi ascended the stage, his expression cold. Drawing his short sword, he pointed it at the Kusagakure ninja across from him. From below, Rin cheered with her tiny fists raised. Kakashi, you've got this. Obito clasped Rin's hands with an air of seriousness. Rin, don't waste your energy cheering for Kakashi. He's bound to win anyway. Save your strength for your own match. Rin tilted her head, confused. But dash. Winner of the third match, Hatake Kakashi, the proctor's cool voice interrupted. Obito, 777. Rin, 777. The two looked up, stunned, realizing that the fight had ended while they were talking. Ryoko, on the other hand, gazed at Kakashi with starry eyes. Her heart fluttered as if a deer were performing a waltz inside. Kakashi-kun is so strong. That was less than 30 seconds. However, as the match after match saw Konoha's victories, the other nations' leaders grew visibly disgruntled. Another win for Konoha? I thought their talent pool was running dry. Ha! A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Can't deny their strength. The more bitter their complaints, the brighter Hiruzen's smile grew. He sipped his tea contentedly, savoring every moment of their frustration. Finally, the proctor announced the next match. Fourth round, Uchiha Obito vs. Might Guy. In the viewing stands, a loud laugh echoed. Konoha is finally going to lose. Ha! Someone beside him sighed heavily. Brother, are you okay? They're fighting each other. How does that count as a loss for Konoha? Rin whispered words of encouragement to Obito. You can do it, Obito-kun. Obito nodded as he and Guy stepped onto the stage. He looked at Guy seriously. Guy, I just hope. Guy cut him off with a wave of his hand. Don't worry, Obito. I understand you perfectly. As Obito sighed internally, Guy confidently declared. I will give this my all. No holding back. Obito's smile froze. Star. Of course you will. With Guy removing his weights and assuming a fighting stance, Obito pondered his strategy. Guy's taijutsu is overwhelming, and his mental resilience makes Jinjutsu ineffective. This will be tough. He clenched his fists, his mind racing. If I can't win easily, I won't stand out. I need to surprise everyone, but how? As the plan formed in his mind, Obito's eyes lit up. I've got it! That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 3. Peace.